Welcome to the Spencer Whiteout podcast. Rated R.
You have some criminal charges with you, bro. Guess like we're avoiding the sharks.
Okay, turbo neck guy.
I'll give you a kiss. You give me your number.
That checked out a ton, dude. Tell me you felt. We're Americans. We're the ones that are descendants from the 1776 musket-bearing motherfuckers.
All right, thank you guys so much for tuning in. In this episode, we have Jake from Reflections. This episode was recorded the day after their comeback show on October 31st, 2021. I actually flew out from California to Minnesota for this show, and I gotta say, it was one of the best weekends of my life. Jake was super welcoming to me and invited me into his home to record this episode. So what you guys are about to hear is going to be a 2-hour in-depth conversation on Reflections' career thus far and their future plans. We talked all about the history of the band, the best and worst shows over the years, Jake's process for writing lyrics, getting out of a messy legal contract, previous releases, the upcoming Crystallize EP, a redux of the Fantasy Effect, the next full-length record, and how Jake plans to end Reflections on his own terms and leave a legacy. So let's dive in. All right, so here we are. We are back. Dude, Jake, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today, man.
Absolutely. I appreciate you being here and coming up for the show.
Yeah, so let's talk about the show, man. How was it coming back?
It was pretty surreal because we thought originally that show and that, you know, us being back to playing live was going to be in early 2020. And, you know, we had gotten those thoughts and that anticipation in mind in 2019. So to really have the rug pulled so quickly was crazy. And then, you know, we kept trying to reschedule it and canceling it. So for it to actually finally happen, you know, even up until like 20 minutes before the show, you know, it was like, is this really going to happen? You know, so it was,
right.
it was amazing. Almost kind of forgot how it felt. So
no, you guys looked great up there, and it was a packed house. So
yeah, Minnesota rolled out, and people from all over. So it was really something.
Yeah. Well, you know, I flew out from California.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, dude, I wouldn't miss it, you know?
I saw people coming from California, from Florida, Texas, New York. It was really crazy.
Yeah. That must be really humbling, huh?
Yeah. It's just really, I guess, you know, humbling. It means a lot that it means that much to other people because, you know, you don't just do this for ourselves. It's to try and build that connection.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, everyone was feeling it and everyone was really screaming the words, dude. I'm sure you just loved that.
Yeah.
So good.
It's been a long time.
How was it compared to the farewell show 5 years ago? Because it's kind of the exact opposite.
Yeah, you know, the farewell show was really tough and it was hard to play because, you know, the whole time you're trying to like do your thing, but you're like, I'm not going to do this again. You know,
Yeah.
it was really tough. And this time it was, like you said, it was a complete 180. It was still really overwhelming, but it was just more of a like, this is happening again. Like, I didn't know if this would ever happen again. And, you know, I had dreams about doing this and here we are. So
How was practicing? How long did you guys practice?
I think we practiced about 5 or 6 times before the show. Nick stayed with me for that whole week, so he was playing a lot. But as far as full band practices, this is probably the most we've ever practiced before a show. Granted, it had been years since we played together,
Yeah,
so it was
you need it.
duly necessary.
Right.
But previously, we were not a band to historically practice together. You know, we'd practice individually and meet up for the tour and go from there. So this was different, and it was really nice because I think it's important to really get that physical playing together in a room. You know?
Yeah. Did you play right back there?
Yep, that's where we were.
Like pretty cramped?
Yeah, it was the 3 of them in there, and then I would let them practice instrumentally.
Dude, and you're just like moshing around up in here, right?
Yeah, I definitely was. I was trying to figure out, you know, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, you know, it used to just come so natural, and now it was like, it had almost become kind of a foreign thing.
How was it learning the new song that you guys played? What was that song called, by the way?
That song's called Metamorphosis.
Badass, right?
Yeah, and I don't think even any of the guys in the band had heard it with vocals at that point. But I love that song. I think it'll be a lot easier for people to know what's happening when they get a chance to actually sit down and listen to it.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited about that song. It's actually probably one of the more tamed songs that we're working on right now.
Yeah, right, dude.
No, I'm serious.
Dude, that song is crazy.
It's really not compared to.
Oh my God.
And it's actually like one of the shorter songs, like the EP that we've been working on. That song is from. I've actually really been working with Patty a lot again, and you know, over the course of the last half of a decade, there's been a lot of disconnect and stuff. So it's been really fun working with him again, and yeah, it's really pushed my level of songwriting and composure. So yeah, I'm really excited for people to hear them, but we're just we thought we would have it out, but we're gonna take a little more time.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, so we'll get to that stuff in a bit about the new music and stuff, but I wanted to ask some trivia about what some of your other best shows over the years and some of the other worst shows over the years have been. So maybe we'll start with the good ones.
Good ones. You know, every single home show we've played has been something to remember, because every single time it's just more meaningful, I think, because it's like, you know, it's not just a show. This is 10 years we have spent with a lot of these people, you know, and they've been there. They've seen us when we played our first show. Like I saw a lot of people last night that I remember being at the house in the basement that we opened a show for, that everyone was just like smashed, having a blast, you know, and it's like, it's just really crazy to actually think about that, and like, you think of all the things that they've done during that time.
Yeah, you guys have such a loyal fan base.
Yeah, and it's really cool because it's to the point where it's like, it's almost like we have a lot of like-minded people that listen to it, so it makes it really easy to connect with everybody.
Yeah, like a real family.
Yeah. But as far as some other shows, we were invited to play New England Metal Fest a few times when we were touring, and that was always really cool. I can't remember the names of some of the other festivals that we've done, but I mean, they were really cool. Nothing like crazy. We never did any like huge, massive festivals or anything, but you know, it was always really cool getting in a place with a few thousand people in there. Like that's a lot to me.
Yeah.
That's enough. That's good for me. And I guess some other things. We did this tour with Born of Osiris, kind of like when we were first starting out. Like after the burial, kind of took us out on like one of our first mini tours, but when Blue took us out, they really like took us under their wing, and like that was like the first time we ever hung out with someone. And every single one of those shows, that was also when Charles was in the band, and like he went up on stage one night in booty shorts while they were playing.
What?
And it was just like, it was crazy. So
what was he doing? Was he playing a guitar? Or
I
just
don't remember.
Dancing up there.
He may have brought his unplugged guitar on there and been messing around, or he may have just walked up there and like stood there. It was hilarious, and they loved it too.
Oh,
it was
good.
Yeah, just any show with, you know, that you can look back and it makes you smile is an awesome one.
And how about those rough ones, man?
Man, here we go. So I'll start first with the second to last show that we ever played. It was
Second to last, mean before the farewell show?
Before the farewell show. Yeah, sorry. We went to this venue. I don't remember where we were. And we show up, and it's supposed to be like, not a festival, but it was like a weekender thing with a lot of bands from around there, and it looked cool. But then we got in, and there were all these chairs bolted to the floor, and the whole stage that we were supposed to play on was full of equipment from something else. And there was like a balcony above where all the chairs were, but the chairs were facing this way, but the balcony was up here. And they were like, well, you guys are going to play up there.
What?
And we're like, what? Because if you went up there, it was like big enough for a drum kit, and like, you know, there wasn't like people could go up there. It was like, and he's like, yeah, everyone will be down there and you'll play up there. I'm like, what? I was like, what? And it was like,
That's
it was like
so weird.
2 stories or something. Like, it was crazy. And I was like, what's happening?
Was this the original plan, or did you guys get kicked to some weird side stage?
Yeah, it was. I don't even know how to explain it, because it was like the stage was like this cone thing, like the one we were supposed to play on. It was really cool, and big floor, but all these chairs were bolted down, and then the balcony was like up here.
Yeah,
it was just so it made no sense. And then all of a sudden the promoter was gone, and all these bands started showing up, and no one knew what to do. And the other person that was like the ticket person was like, the show's canceled, and we're like, what is going on? And then some like crackhead showed up and was like screaming at everybody and like trying to get into people's vans. And we were like, you know what? We're out of here. So that was probably one of the worst. And I think, yeah, at that point, there was some stuff going on internally with like people's family. And we were just like, we can't keep doing this, like this is ridiculous,
man.
And at that point, we weren't getting a lot of support from the industry that we were a part of. So we were really trying to like still do things on our own. And let's see, some other really bad shows we did when Era came out with Augment and we came out with Exist. We did a co-headlining tour, and that was kind of before either one of us had really built up a fan base all over the US.
What were the supporting acts? Do you remember?
It was literally us and Era.
What?
Yeah, it was
Just
us and
two?
Era
Oh, man.
rotating every day.
Oh,
And that was
man.
when Garrison was in the band too. But we played this one show. I can't remember. I think it was in Georgia or something. But there were 3 people there. Like literally 3 people. And the venue was no bigger than this basement, which for anyone listening, it's like probably a 15 by 10 or 12. I don't know. It was very small, and the stage was
I
incredibly
mean, that's
small.
bad, but at least it wasn't a huge venue.
Yeah,
with
that
3
would have been
people. That would have been
too.
even worse.
And the sound system was like, it was crazy. I can't believe we
well,
played.
did those 3 people have a good time?
That was the funny part, is they were doing like a circle pit and like moshing. So yeah, that was like the saving grace. They weren't just like standing there, but it was crazy because both of us had just put albums out, and I don't know what happened, but it happens.
Yeah.
We had another really bad show, and we all used to drink a lot. And I started asking everyone if they liked cheeseburgers. And then we wouldn't start playing until everyone was doing a Slayer chant.
What?
And then I was like, Slayer, Slayer. And everyone's like, Slayer, Slayer. And then once it was crazy because everyone was getting hyped.
Yeah.
But it was fun. And then someone threw their guitar up in a tree and it got stuck up there. I don't really remember a lot.
Yeah, right.
But
do you remember if you could actually play well while drunk or not?
the set was filmed, and it was rowdy. I mean, we played everything really, really fast because back then this was probably in 2012 or 2013, and we just played everything super fast. Yeah, somehow we made it through.
Yeah. Do you feel like you learned anything from some of those bad shows or
100%.
like how did you handle that? Because that's got to be very disappointing to put your heart and soul into it and then like hardly anyone show up.
Yeah, it's really weird, especially when you're touring and that happens. We were such a young band at that time, and I had been in a band before Reflections with Patty.
What was that band?
The band was called Militia. It was like thrash metal with metalcore. It was really weird, but it was fun. It was the first band I was ever in. But we played shows in front of 2 or 3 people, so it wasn't new to me, but it was definitely a reminder that you're no better than anybody else. It can happen to anybody. You're just another person. So it was a reminder to just keep working.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to think of it. If you sit there and you're like, God damn it, it's like, then all of a sudden you're surrounding yourself with negativity. So
Yeah. Got to be thankful for what you have.
yeah, at least I'm out here traveling.
I want to ask about, I think you told it on another podcast. I don't quite remember where I heard this, but there was some story you were telling about being trapped in a snowstorm and you were tripping out on something. Like, what was that, man?
So that wasn't necessarily a bad show, but that was
Right,
a
but a
crazy
crazy
trip.
Crazy story.
We went to Denver, and someone there they were like, hey, you like acid, right? And I'm like, yeah, I do. So they like gave me a sheet or something. We were making a drive to Colorado Springs, and the festival that we were playing was literally called like 420 Fest. So I was like, oh, I'm going to do acid today and just be chilling out and have a great time tomorrow. And we started this drive, and it was awesome at first because there was all these really cool big carved out rocks. And then you start going uphill towards Colorado Springs, and it went from like a nice sunny day where I could see trees and stuff, and I'm tripping. And all of a sudden it was like a blizzard, and there was cars sliding around everywhere. And we got to a point finally where we were going uphill and we weren't moving anymore.
With a trailer, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were just stalling out. And then all these cars started like veering off the road. And it literally got to the point where there was probably 100 cars around us. And there were semis trying to like squeeze between us and the railing. And it was like, the railing was like a steep drop off. And our photographer dash merch guy at the time, Tyler, literally like, cause this semi was so close to us that it was like pushing our mirror out, and he was like just hitting the side of that thing like, what are you doing? And then Unearth was one of the bands that we were traveling with, and we literally watched. They blew past us, and they were like laughing because they're like, "You got stuck," and then they're literally just like, "Yeah," and then they got stuck. We all got out of the van because we're like, "What are we gonna do?" And we took all the mats out for the shoes, and we would put one under a tire, and we'd go up like a foot, and then we'd move them up, and we'd go up like a foot.
No way.
And we did that for like 30 minutes, and obviously we're like, "This is so stupid. Like, what are we gonna do?" And then we were probably out there for a couple of hours. And then all of a sudden, they started sending these trucks coming the other way, and they were just pulling people up one at a time.
Yeah, one at a time, huh? That probably took forever.
Yes, even when we started seeing them, we were still there for another hour.
Now, since you were tripping out, were you like just hella confused? And
I actually started having a ball.
Really?
I was like, "This is insane," because I got out, and it's not every day you get to like get out and just stand in the middle of a freeway. And, and it was
with
like
a bunch of other confused drivers.
And I was like, everyone else here is having such a bad time that no one's going to care about me at all, And it was cool because you couldn't really see, but you could kind of see. And there's like all these mountains and this like snow. And I was like, wow, like it was nuts.
I feel like that would have given me just mad anxiety.
It definitely could have gone that way, but I just chose not to have to go that way.
Dude, that's really funny. And that reminds me of the craziest encounter. One time I was driving on a freeway, and then everybody stopped, right? And this is just in LA, and it was a huge like 5-6 lane freeway, and no one knows what's going on, and we're stuck there for like an hour. And apparently there's a bridge way out in the distance, and I think there was like going to be a guy that was jumping, right, to commit suicide, right? And so I guess that's why everything was stopped. And next thing I know, there's a helicopter landing in the middle of the freeway. And I was like, but that was before I knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why is there a helicopter
That's
landing in the
wild.
middle of the freeway? And people were trying to drive backwards and stuff. And people got into some fender benders because they were just trying to get out of there. It was a really crazy and weird experience. And that
That's
just reminded
not every day you see a
me of that.
helicopter landing on the highway.
Right. So you mentioned some of those early days and those early shows. Tell me about what got you into heavy music and kind of what your musical influences were over the years, over your journey.
When I was in like probably 5th grade, I listened to a lot of like rap and hip hop that was coming out at the time. And I'm pretty sure I got my hands on, I think it was The End of All Things to Come by Mudvayne. And that really blew me away. And my old man used to actually work for a school, and they would get like these boxes of Overstock CDs. It was like a school for like people that were in legal trouble. So if they did really well or something, they'd get to pick out a CD or something.
like a juvie, or
kind of
it's like an extension school.
Yeah.
So they get all the edgy CDs.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that help?
Like I no joke, Gucci Mane had this album come out called Back to the Trap House, and I had 150 copies of that album, and I gave them out to everyone at my school because I fucking
like,
loved
listen
that.
to this.
Dude, he had this song called I Moved Chickens, and it was incredible. And now look at him. That was like old Gucci, and now Gucci's just on top. And then when he was doing that, I got Metallica put Saint Anger out, and I loved that. I still love that album. I know a lot of people hate on that album. I think that album is so good because it doesn't really sound like traditional Metallica. Cold Year, The Spider, and then Killswitch Engage, although I don't really listen to them a lot anymore. I think it was the opening track on their album, The End of Heartache, and The End of a Heartache. And it had some drum fill. And I was like 12 years old. And when I heard that, I was like, I don't want to just listen to this. Like, I want to do that. And that's when I got, my old friend Tyrell had a drum kit. And I would go over to his house and I would always play his drum kit. And I was like, dude, can I just buy this from you? Because he didn't play. And he was like, sure, dude, you can buy it from me. So I bought that drum kit, had it in my garage, and just started learning how to play songs. And that led to me joining the first band that I was in.
Were you a drummer or vocalist?
I was a drummer.
Yeah, okay.
And then, well, yeah, I guess that's some of my influences. I could also dive into what that led to me meeting Patty.
Yeah, that'd be cool. One quick question though, because I feel like every person that gets into metal discovered Linkin Park somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
Was that part of your journey? Because that was for me.
It definitely was.
When I heard Linkin Park, those first 2 albums, I was like, what is this?
That's what was, I don't know how it happened this way. I think it's because, my old man really liked classic rock. And I do not like classic rock, like at all. it's not bad music. I don't know if it's the production value. There's something about it that it just, because when I listen to music, the first thing that often comes to my mind is production.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that can really, I can't even listen to some really good music if it has bad production.
And sometimes the bad production, like I talk about them a lot, but I love Admiral Angry. Their record is like not produced super crazy, and it sounds really cool. So it all depends on the players and everything. And my mom was really into like radio alt rock. And she actually worked for a radio station. So she like Modest Mouse and stuff like that. And that's, again, really good music. But I was young and I wanted something crazy,
Yeah, yeah.
I discovered a lot of the heavy bands like Slipknot and Mudvayne before I discovered Linkin Park. And then when I discovered Linkin Park, because I used to listen to a lot of hip hop and rap, and I was like, oh, wow, I've never heard this before. Hybrid Theory and Meteora were like all I listened to. Yeah, those were definitely huge.
That's dope. What about what were the first kind of metalcore bands you got into? I know you mentioned Killswitch, but
yeah, see that, and I think I actually probably really fell off of metalcore because I was listening to bands like Slipknot and Mudvayne, and then I found Suicide Silence on MySpace when they had their EP come out where there was like a bunch of Family Guy character faces and a bunch of Family Guy quotes in the songs. I mean, we're talking about recording quality. It was not very good.
Yeah.
But I mean, it pushed the boundaries so far from anything. It was like, what are these vocals?
Yeah.
Because even, you listen to Slipknot and Mudvayne, it is a lot of pitchy things. There are notes involved, and there were not notes involved, and I'd never heard that before. So I was just like, wow. From Suicide Silence, I found Carnifex, and I found Whitechapel, and I found Veil of Maya.
you kind of skipped metalcore.
I went right to deathcore and like Job for a Cowboy, another one, the Doom EP. Like when that scream happened and the snare hit, I mean, I was just sold, dude. I was like, wow. And Suicide Silence came out with The Cleansing, and Job for a Cowboy came out with Genesis. And that was like the first time I really heard that stuff produced really well. And then it was game over. I was sold. And then I found out about Oceano and like all those bands.
Yeah, and I think right around The Cleansing, Suicide Silence, right? And that's when production started to get really tight and really and I mean, like it just sounds so much more powerful.
Exactly. And This Is Exile came out from Whitechapel. And I mean, that album was just like, it was nuts to me. And at that point in time, Patty was in that band with me. And that's kind of when that started happening, you started hearing those really well produced. And like when Veil of Maya came out with Common Man's Collapse, that mix on that album, I know some people don't like it, but that mix blew me away. I don't know what it is. It may have just been something of the times too, but I was like, wow, the music that we were playing at the time, I was like, this is outdated already. And that was kind of why I didn't like classic rock, because it's like, there's so much more you can do than what this, and you have to respect pioneers, obviously.
Right.
And I'm sure, that's why I've tried and made it a point where I looked at my old man and he did not like any of the music I was listening to because he didn't understand it. And I didn't like his music, not because I couldn't understand it, but at times I felt like I could understand it too easily. I didn't have to go very in depth into it.
And it's not as complex musically either.
Because people continuously push the boundaries. And that's what I always look for in music. And that's what I think I really, again, tried to focus on, was always being open to hearing what the next thing is. Because it's not going to stop.
Yeah.
And you might as well not hold yourself back from that.
Yeah. Now, do you play any other instruments other than drums?
Yeah, I play guitar, and I mean, bass goes with that. I really like playing piano, but drums are definitely the biggest thing for me.
That's rad. And how about guitar playing? I mean, obviously, you're probably not on Patty's level, are you?
Not even close to being on that level. When I write guitars,
that's insane.
I can think of things in my head, but I don't have any composition skills with guitars. So when I record things, I have to record them at like 3/4 speed or half speed.
Oh, and you can speed it up in the program?
Yeah, just time adjust it. But then from there, if something's written, Patty will listen to it, put his spin on it, and actually record it.
That's super funny. You're doing it in slow-mo for
kind
him.
of. Yeah.
If you do that, like, does he ever take a listen to it when it's, sped up and go, okay, I can't play this, or this doesn't sound right when it is sped up?
I've not ran into that with
Wow.
him,
Okay.
It was very fast fingers.
I just wonder if it would sound different though, being like, oh, it sounds like
does.
it's going to be so cool. And then you speed it up and you're like, wait, this actually isn't as cool as I thought.
That's definitely, that has happened. The tonal qualities of that. Yeah. Sometimes when you're actually just trying to go ham, you won't get as much definition necessarily. And sometimes that's good and sometimes it's not. But you have to try and figure out how to move through that.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that before. That's a really cool way to experiment and just try things out.
I mean, there's some things that I can record normally too, patterny things.
Yeah.
But like, you know, if I'm trying to think of a riff,
Jake records everything in slow motion.
Yes, we're a slow motion band.
Right. Okay, so yeah, tell me about meeting Patty and then I guess Francis, and also just I want to know like how the hell they can play that fast, because I mean, granted I do listen to a lot of metal and stuff, but like I think he's got some of the fastest fingers I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it's mind blowing.
He definitely does. I love the story of how I met Patty because I think it's just so weird, and it's also a testament of how the internet used to be. I was in that band Militia. There were two guitarists, and one of them had left, who was like the lead guitarist, because he got really into playing classical guitar.
Oh man, the enemy, dude.
Well, dude, and he was sick.
Okay.
I mean, he could rip that classical. So it was like, all right, dude, you know, like I can't blame you.
Yeah. There's still some respect there.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not like he was going to classic
growing out the
rock.
pinky nails and everything. Like he was going into it, dude.
Dude, if he went back to classic rock though, you would have disowned him forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no turning back from that.
Right.
There's no forgiveness. But yeah, so didn't really know what to do. And I went on YouTube and I typed guitar solo or something like that.
Or Minnesota guitar players.
I don't even think I included the words Minnesota. And I was scrolling through. I think it was Randall, the guitar company, was having some shred guitar contest. And I watched this video. I saw this kid sitting on a stool in his kitchen with a 6-string LTD guitar. And he was just ripping. And I was like, damn, that's cool. You know, watched another one. Couldn't tell where any of these people lived or anything. And then I'm in my social studies class. And and I'm like
think I've heard
looking around
this.
because I never paid attention in school at that time. I'm like looking around. I'm like, and he's like on the other side of the classroom. I'm like, that looks just like that kid. And he never talked or anything.
Did you know him before that or not?
I did not know him.
Wait, how big is your high school?
I think graduating classes are usually 800 to 1,000.
Oh my gosh.
There's a lot of people.
That's huge. Dude, I grew up in a small town. Mine was like 60 people.
Oh, wow.
Private school, but
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, this is a big public high school.
So yeah, you wouldn't have known him. So you look over and you see this guy.
Yep, and he's wearing skinny jeans and a black t-shirt. And you know, I'm sitting there like, what the hell? And I go over and I'm like, do you play guitar? Yeah. And I was like, do you have a video on YouTube of you playing guitar? And he's like, yeah. I asked him if he wanted to audition, and I knew it was for sure him when he came over with that same guitar, and it went awesome. And we're like, dude, like, you want to join the band? And he was like, sure. So we were in that band for a couple of years. And I think by the time we were graduating, I went on Patty's MySpace one day, and he had uploaded these 2 songs that he wrote, and I listened to them. And we never wound up using them for anything, but they were really cool. And I was like, this is crazy. And he was just like, this is something I've been writing. And I was like, I had always really liked writing and poetry. Like that was always something that I did all throughout my entire life. And I had a lot of emotional issues.
Hey, that's a perfect combination.
Right. And I was drumming, so I liked thinking of patterns and thinking of things like that. So I was like, I kind of want to try doing vocals. So he and I started working on stuff.
Was the other band kind of falling apart at the time?
The other members were like, and myself included, were really getting bad into drugs and drinking. And it started progressing. It was just getting worse and worse. But for me, it was like whenever I got really messed up, I still wanted to do music stuff. Everyone else just wanted to party.
Right.
You know, but I was like, I'm going to get really messed up and I'm going to try and write something, or I'm going to go play drums and see how that goes. You know,
did it go well or?
Yes and no.
Right.
I don't want to.
That's expected.
I don't want to like encourage anyone to go out there exploring blacking out to like, but you know, smoking some weed and, you know, some psychedelic drugs have definitely helped shape me as a musician, as where I can't necessarily say the same about stimulants, alcohol, and Xanax, you know, or opioids.
Yeah, so you and Patty.
Yeah, and we tried presenting some of that stuff to that band, and it just didn't click with anybody because, you know, it was a lot of patterns and stuff like that, and that wasn't something that
it's like the technical kind of.
You know, Patty really liked Necrophagist, and this was like Necrophagist with deathcore. So we started doing our own thing. And then that is when Patty was like, hey, my cousin plays bass and I'm in a band with him. And I was like, you're in another band? Like, holy shit. So we met him, and the other guitarist in their band's name was Alex, who also was a part of Reflections initially. And in Militia, we played a show with another band. I met someone named Bo, and we just kind of clicked. And I invited him over one day and showed him a demo of what became Miscommunication. And we just started practicing.
Yeah, that's legit. How were your vocals at the time, though?
Garbage. Awful. Like the worst. And I actually can't even listen to some of our old music because of how much I hate my voice.
From the Fantasy Effect or before that?
Fantasy Effect, Exist. And Exist, there was a lot of trouble recording the vocals because I kept blowing my voice out. Because when we were in the studio, that's a totally different topic, but he was like, if you just drink all this whiskey, it'll make your voice sound really good. So I'm like sitting there like screaming my ass off, getting drunk as hell, drinking whiskey, and my voice is going away. And he's like, you're not a professional, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like wasted. Like, what?
Wait, who's he?
Just a producer we were working with at the time. I was lucky enough to have Charles was willing to record me at his house. But it was weird because I started doing vocals in 2011. We released TFE in 2012. So I had hardly been doing vocals. And I think we recorded the vocals for the Fantasy Effect in Patty's apartment. And every time we did a song, we had to do it in like 30 minutes. Otherwise, the neighbors would like come start pounding on his door. And they'd be like, what's going on? And we're just like, leave us alone.
We're making metal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they just hear me up there screaming like a dumbass.
You got to get like a parental advisory sticker on your door or sign on your door.
Recording deathcore.
Right.
Go away.
Okay, so talking about your vocals, though, when did you kind of figure it out? As far as, because there's all kinds of different techniques and stuff. And I'm sure there's a lot of experimenting going on.
Yeah, I always try and do something a little. I think I've kept a lot of the same vocals throughout the years, and maybe it has stylistically sounded different as just my voice has changed over the years. But I'm always trying to do new stuff. Like on Fantasy Effect, I really just did 3 things: mids, lows, and highs. On Exist, I had like these weird tongue up vocals and did pitch screaming and just trying stuff. And on TCC, I did a bunch of soft singing and all this stuff. And on Willow, I did a lot of things that were mostly lows and stuff like that. So I don't think I'll ever think I'm a good vocalist. I don't want to think of myself as a good vocalist.
You're a great vocalist, man. I'll just say it, dude.
And I mean, I appreciate that. That's not what I'm looking to hear, because it's my honest opinion that once you have that thought about yourself, like, damn, I'm good at this, you start losing drive and that desire for progression. Because I noticed that with drumming. There was a point when my world was really small and I was in that band, Militia, and I thought I was a fucking sick drummer. I thought I was so good. And then all of a sudden, YouTube starts becoming a thing. And I see a video of Alex Rudinger playing drums and Travis Orban. And I just like fucking drop the sticks on the ground. I'm like, wow, I got a lot to learn. Same with vocals. I thought I was a cool vocalist. And then you get out there in the world and you're like, wow.
Hey, you still got a lot to learn. Yeah,
I got a lot to do.
That's cool. Yeah, you're kind of taking it as like a positive motivation.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So that's good. How do you or the band deal with like writer's block when you guys just feel stuck?
Writer's block has been something that the band definitely has struggled with. I think after The Color Clear, there was a lot of tied up emotion, because you feel happy that you're like away from something that was kind of becoming negative, but at the same time, you're completely lost because this thing that's been your life. We were touring 200 plus days a year, at least. So it's just like, who am I? And I think that made it really hard for some members to write. I actually, when we stopped touring, I wound up living at a practice space for a while because I was essentially homeless when we were touring all the time. I would like stay with friends in between, but because we'd only be home for 2 weeks. But me living at a practice space with my drum kit where I could play anytime I wanted really helped me not fall victim to that as much. And I think the biggest thing that helps me with writer's block is just experiencing life with a really open mind. Because I think when you try to think that you know how to perceive things or you understand things, if you're like, I have so much experience, I'm so wise, then you will start experiencing life with blinders on. When you look at every day like anything could happen to me, then you really start taking a lot of things in. When you watch other people and think about what their life is like, what are they going through? Because it's not just all about you. We are a part of a collective experience. And soaking all that in and realizing that your own trauma and your own experiences could relate to this person, that person, and this person. Those people may not even know how to deal with those things, may not even have that thought process of, I'm going through this right now. And a lot of those people turn to things like music or books or
Movies.
Or movies. Yeah, exactly. Any art form. And so myself, again, I've always liked writing and stuff. So all I wanted to try and do is keep that thought in my head that if I do this, I might be helping someone else out. So that is what really helps me.
Helping someone else out and also helping you process all the emotions and all that.
Exactly. When I do have these intervals of writer's block, I notice that during that time, I'll become really anxious and agitated because I need to get this out, you know? And it's scary sometimes not knowing how to process that stuff. And it's the toughest one to swallow, but time is probably your greatest enemy and your best friend with writer's block, because the days feel long when you're not doing anything. But if you give yourself that time to become inspired again, you know, I know probably yourself, and I've talked to a bunch of other people that have the exact same experiences when you sit down at your workstation or when you're editing, you know, all of a sudden, if you really start getting into it, it's like, man, where did all that time go?
Yeah.
And that's a really beautiful thing. You may not feel like it in the moment, because when I'm sitting there programming drum MIDI for 3 hours, I'm definitely like, wow, you know, like, but it's
tedious, but you enjoy it too.
Yeah,
you just enjoy
that sense of accomplishment
everything in the process.
Yeah, just try not to fall victim to being discouraged in yourself. Just give yourself that time and let yourself experience things.
Yeah, so I wanted to just share with you personally, like, my story of how I found you guys' band. I wish I was there from the beginning, right? But I came around right in 2016, like right after you guys went on hiatus. I remember, I think it was just on YouTube. I saw it was just like a random, you know, recommended, and I saw the album cover and I was like, whoa, that looks sick, for the Color Clear, right?
Yeah.
And it reminded me of Sempiternal. Personally, I think the Color Clear and Sempiternal are the best.
We jammed the shit out of Sempiternal when that came out.
I think those are the best metalcore albums of all time, you know? And so when I saw the cover, I was like, ooh, I got to check this out. And then when I listened to it, I remember it was like tough to take in when I was first listening to it, because the music is so extreme and the lyrics and the vocal delivery is like so raw. I remember being really like, I wasn't sure if I liked it or not.
Yeah.
And because it was like boundary pushing for me, at least what I was listening to at the time. But then there was just something magnetic about it, and I felt like I kept coming back to it, because like I listened to it once and I was like, whoa, that was crazy. And then, you know, a couple weeks later I was like, I want to go listen to that again. Like, what was that all about, you know? And I think it was the fact that the Color Clear had so much layers and so much depth going on with it. And it wasn't just one note, you know, the whole time. There was like all kinds of things with just like these really heavy tracks, and then like these ambient sections and the singing and all that. And I love the way there was breakdowns and solos and clean singing and ambient and like all these other elements, and they were all just like flowing together so well, and it wasn't chained down by rules or by formulas. You know, you gotta have verse chorus breakdown, chorus, like, and I just hate that. Like sometimes that can work, but
no, absolutely,
you know, the Color Clear really went against all that, and yet somehow the song still worked so well and everything. But I also remember not wanting to get into Reflections, because I was like, oh, they just broke up. Like, and I was like, dude, I don't want to get into this band and then be super bummed every time I listen to them. Like, oh, I can't see this band. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
And so I tried to just forget about it. But the raw emotion of the album, I just had to keep coming back to it, you know? As the months went on, I felt like it just became clear that really it was a masterpiece of an album. And I think it stood the test of time for me and for so many others. And it was an album I found right after I had my heart broken, like from my first love relationship. And so that was like a very rough time, as you can imagine, you know, like a very long on and off relationship, and then everything kind of just came to a halt and exploded right around like spring 2017. And so I found you guys' band in like late 2016 and really started listening in 2017. All the songs and the lyrics have so much about like these longings and heartbreak and unrequited love and, you know, self-harm and just all kinds of despair and depression and, you know, and all that stuff. And I think some people, they don't get it. Like one of my friends said to me, they're like, wait, why do you like listening to this music? And I was like, well, dude, because it's a way to feel like you're not alone. And you listen to this and you go, oh, this is what I've been feeling inside the whole time. But like, I didn't know the words to express it. So when you get an album like The Color Clear, you're able to hear someone else going through something similar and you feel like, okay, they get it, they understand it. I'm able to just have a catharsis for myself through this music. And that was an album that like I just clung to so much, laying in my bed at night, and like I'll just listen to the full thing all the way through, and it really helped. And I love the ending of the album, and the last lyrics on the album says, "It was always my greatest fear, everyone I loved would disappear, just like the color clear." First off, amazing rhyme, so great job. But the way it's paired with every instrument fading out one by one, disappearing, I just have chills like when I listen to it, you know, and it's so perfect. And I talked to Nick about it last night, but just like the drumming is super sick too. It feels like just this super climactic, apocalyptic end of the world kind of thing, you know? And so I love it. And I think that's the best closing to an album I've ever heard. But yeah, I just want to hear from you. Like, what's it like to hear that? Because I'm sure you hear that all the time. I mean, I see it all the time in your guys' Facebook comments, people saying, sharing with you similar stories to mine. So what's it like to hear that?
It's really fulfilling because, I mean, that's the reason myself personally that I wanted to do specifically the role in a band as being a vocalist, is because you do get to express your own experiences, for me, in the hope, again, that it will relate to somebody. My mom always tells me, like, why do you write such sad things? Why don't you try writing something happy? I'm like, I don't like happy music, because when I'm sad, I don't want to hear about how happy somebody else is. You know, like,
exactly.
And I can't write about it. It's not organic. It's not real to me. I've always been drawn to music that sounds, I'll use the word emotional. I don't want to say dark or something, but, you know, because sometimes happy music to me seems a bit like stale or something. And there's nothing wrong with it. If you like it, I mean, I like some funny songs too.
Well, and there's moods for it. There's times for it.
Exactly. And I've just always been pulled more toward writing to let things go for cathartic reasons. When I see yourself and other people that, again, have gone through some of this stuff, because we don't measure anyone else's pain and suffering by the event itself, because we all experience and process things differently. So anyone's obstacles are just as hard to overcome as mine. You know what I mean? If there's some common ground that can be found, that, you know, someone will hear a phrase, or someone hears the way that the guitar sounds here, or, you know, the drums, if that's impactful and gives you that feeling, it's like all that other stuff's kind of gone right now. That means more than anything, because I always, growing up, was searching for that escape. I was searching for a way to get away, and just to know that we can maybe even be a part of that for someone else will always mean more than anything.
Yeah. Let's see here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe at one point you said that the lyrics on The Color Clear were mostly inspired by just a few people in your life. And I'm curious if there's ever any nervousness about those people hearing it. You know, would they know the songs were about them? Would they even bother to listen? I'm wondering how you deal with that, because you're putting it out into the world, you know?
I actually know that they've listened to it, and some of those people were still in my life after that album came out, and not to the degree that they were before it came out. And some of those people weren't in my life at all when that album came out, and they are now. And they've asked me about it because they do know. And in some instances, it has been a way to end something, and in others, it was a way to come to terms and be able to move forward. In the end, all around, it was positive. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. And for me as a writer-director, when I'm writing a screenplay, you know, I'm writing from a very deep place. And I know that when the project is complete, everyone's going to see me at my most vulnerable. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And I think it takes a lot of guts to put it all out there like that, you know, and to just kind of share your soul. So I have a lot of respect for any artist that's willing to do that, you know, because it's a pretty courageous thing, and not a lot of people want to do that.
I understand that. And, that was actually a point for me with doing vocals and being a vocalist in a band was I'm not going to use this to talk about something that I don't relate to, that doesn't pertain to me, that I don't care about, and there's nothing wrong with writing lyrics. Like, if you're a band that wants to write music that is topical about something, that's cool. But I can only write and do vocals if it is something that I'm emotional about. I couldn't go up and do vocals about something that was religious necessarily because I'm not a religious person. I couldn't really do something political because I don't really care about the government.
That's because they don't care about us.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly, dude. Why should I put anything into someone that truly doesn't care about me?
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about religion, honestly. Because the experiences I've had in my life and I've seen other people go through, I question that.
Yeah. Well, I'm on the other side of that one, but
that's fine.
But
I think that's awesome.
I appreciate being able to learn from people you disagree with.
Yep.
And that's why, myself as a Christian, I still love all, your lyrics and stuff because it's honest and because I think I'd be lying to myself. And I think people would be lying to themselves if they don't, if they haven't had all those same questions and frustrations towards other people in their life, towards God, towards, whatever the case is. So I think it's a great way to process through all of it. And I don't think any of it needs to be off limits.
No, because we all can have the way I live my life is you should do everything that you can to be as happy as you can be, so long as it is not at the expense of somebody else.
Yeah. And I heard something from Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you know who that is.
Name doesn't ring a bell.
He's like an intellectual. He's like a really smart guy.
Okay.
But he does lectures and everything. And he was saying that happiness is good, but what you really need in your life is meaning. And he said that happiness is the thing that is kind of like a byproduct of having a meaningful and a fulfilling life.
Sure. And
so I always like that because I think sometimes we can get caught up just pursuing happiness when really the happiness comes from meaningful relationships, meaningful art, meaningful work, and all that. So that's something good to think about.
Happiness comes from stability.
Stability, yeah, that too. I want to dive into the Color Clear a bit more in depth, just because it's my favorite, and I know it's other people's favorites. I want to talk about the artwork because that's, initially what got my attention. So I want to know how you arrived on that image. I know you worked with a tattoo artist, but tell me about that.
All the artwork for the Color Clear, if anyone got the CD booklet or remembers the images that were shared, was all done by Tyler Hawkinson, who is my friend, and also he does all the tattoos that I have, and he's done Fran's tattoos as well. When we started writing the Color Clear, a year before that, roughly, I had gone through a really bad house fire, and it was kind of like a pinnacle of like traumatic experiences for me. Like it was like the last straw. I was just like, when is it going to end? And I started using LSD a lot because I wanted to stop drinking, because that whole thing happened because people were drinking, and they also all started drinking again that same night. After we got put into a hotel by Red Cross. So that was just like really eye-opening for me. I was like, how can you do this? Then I guess it's not the best that I just turned to something else, but that's what I did. But I was really at the end of my rope, and doing LSD, at least in the beginning for me, you see a lot of fractaling images and that kind of geometry. And not only that, but when I started using LSD, I started realizing different ways that I could think, different ways that I could care, not only for myself, but about other people. I started thinking about trust because it was something that I really didn't have in my life. And it let me move on from a lot of things. And that really inspired the art for the Color Clear, just because I viewed those images as just these very wholesome things that helped me through an extremely dark interval of my life.
That's interesting. I would not have expected that as kind of the inspiration. That's interesting. And how about the logo? What is it? Japanese king, right?
Yep, the kanji.
Yeah.
That was actually Francis's idea in 2014. Before the Color Clear came out, we actually started using that logo on our Exist tour cycle. I could be getting this slightly wrong, but I believe in like the understanding of that symbol is that the 3 bars coming down represent heaven, earth, and limbo. And, your goal is to get up to heaven, but oftentimes you get stuck in the middle of everything. And that was kind of being king, ruling your own life, making your own decisions. That was kind of our backing to that. So incorporating that into that album artwork cover was kind of stapling that for us.
I think it's perfect. I think it brings it together. Now, let's see. How about the black and white vibe? And I love that you kept that because I love black and white.
Yeah. TFE and Exist we kind of actually talked about this. You said something similar to it before we started this. When we did those, it was that, we were a lot younger and there was a lot of aspiration and excitement and you can hear it in the music. And then when it came time for us to do TCC, we weren't the same people anymore. That was kind of why we did no color there. And then the music just became very grayscale after that. Willow is a very, what I would consider, black and white album. And Silhouette is also a very black and white release. You also mentioned this earlier, or when you listen to The Color Clear for the first time, it's not very easy to digest. And I think that can be said about all of our music. I don't think I've ever met anyone, or hardly anyone, where they're like, this is the fucking best thing ever right when it comes out. And everyone's like, and then it takes some time to revisit things. And I'm fine with that because I would rather have something stand the test of time.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I love that. I think great art can really be arresting to people, and they sometimes don't know how to process it, but it hits them deep. Just like, for me with The Color Clear. And I was like, man, this is giving me a lot to think about. And you just keep coming back to it. And there's something about it. And that's so much more valuable than something that's 15 seconds of fame in one ear, out the other.
Right.
What was the decision behind having the songs seamlessly flow together?
Song arrangement has always been a huge thing for me because I grew up listening to albums. I'll reference them again because they did a really good job. Mudvayne was the first band that I ever heard have the beginning of this one. You could hear the tail end of that other one. Or, they would have songs that, I forgot what these are called. I've only noticed it on CD too, but if you listen to The End of All Things to Come by Mudvayne, there's this one spot on that album where if you skip the song, you won't hear it. But if you listen to it and then you let it play, it actually says -11 seconds.
Oh, yeah, on a CD,
yeah,
right? And you can rewind or whatever?
And it's there's this hidden track in there. And it's wow.
Was it a full track?
No, it was like a little intermission. I was just like, that's so cool. So whenever we've written music, I've always thought about the order and how the songs are going to play into one another, what kind of key or note they end in. But TCC, we really focused on that. And that was also the first time that we were working with someone that was paying mind to those things. The album also kind of, if you play it on a loop, plays back into itself. So that was also something that we wanted to do.
Do you know 10 Code by Villains?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
That one plays into the beginning.
Oh, damn. I've never listened to it on repeat. Dude, I should.
It goes perfect.
That's what I really hope doesn't get lost about music now and how algorithms work, and they want you to keep posting one thing at a time every other month or whatever.
Well, for the true fans, though, you know.
They'll still sit there and go through it.
Yeah. How was it working with Will Putney?
Machine Shop at the time, and now I think it's Graphic Nature Audio, was the best studio experience we ever had. We've only had 2, so not a lot to compare it to, but it was really, really fun. Working with Will was really cool, but who we were really more hands-on with was Randy LeBeouf, and he helped us a lot on that record because we learned a lot. We learned how to record the right way, and we've brought that back home.
What's the right way?
Just you don't need to record your full riff at once. Break it into sections. Do it so it's clean. Mute parts of the guitar that you're not using. Haven't had the opportunity to record live drums, but if we did, just seeing the best ways to punch in so things flow seamlessly, and how bringing things slightly off the grid and here and there adds dynamics and doesn't necessarily make things sound messy. It makes it sound real. And they really pushed me with recording and helped me figure out how to record vocals really efficiently.
Yeah, I want to talk about the vocals. What was the decision to kind of totally switch your vocal style on The Color Clear?
See, I didn't even think that I really changed my vocal style.
I feel like everyone thinks you did.
Everyone does think I did. And I don't know if it's because it was
production
it
is
was
cleaner.
the first time I had good production on my voice. because Fantasy Effect was garbage, but in my head, I was still doing the same vocals.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's the vocal chain that they had me going through that was like really tightly compressed and sounded not as distorted or something. And at parts they put distortion on, like you can kind of tell. In Sadist, like when it's just the little part. But yeah, I don't know. I think it would have been the production.
Well, and your voice you're older too. That might have changed things a little bit.
It was 2 years between Exist and Color Clear. And lots of touring, which the touring definitely changed my voice a lot. I noticed. But yeah, and then the pitch screaming was just honestly a huge influence of Sempiternal. I was like, wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Yeah. That, like you said, that album, it was like a modern day, for me anyway, it was like a modern day Linkin Park old school release.
And what's great about Sempiternal and the Color Clear is that you can understand the words. Which is crazy, right?
That was another thing that you mentioned. It, I really wanted to be audible, and that's something I still try and focus on a lot. Is the lyrics, like I want people to be able to
decipher.
Yep. And my test is like if my mom can kind of understand what I'm saying, sometimes I'm probably not doing too bad.
Yeah, no, that's good. That makes sense. And
yeah, I hope we're coming out of. I feel like we are coming out of the era of people just shutting metal off.
Yeah,
which makes me really happy. And I think it's really happened over the last few years. I don't know if that's a product of Spotify or something that's pushing a little different things into people's algorithms or whatever. But it's really cool to see metal getting a chance.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about what led to the hiatus in 2016.
It was probably, it was a handful of things. First and foremost, there were just family things happening that people needed to be home for. Spending 3/4 of a year with your brothers, and it's really fun, but at the same time, there's a lot of really high tension, not between each other necessarily, but when you're driving on icy roads every single night and you got other people's lives in the back of the car and thousands of dollars worth of equipment, like it's really stressful. And we were all different people, especially back then. Some of us liked smoking weed and some of us didn't. And some of us liked doing these things and some of us liked to go work out. And it was just like, we all just wanted to have our own lives, but our lives were confined to being touring musicians.
Confined to a van.
Yeah.
A very small van.
Exactly. And as the years go by and that initial shock value of doing the thing you've thought about doing withered away, especially underneath the weight of being on a label. And if you did earn money, you only got part of it, is pretty soul crushing after a while. Cause it's just like, am I doing this right? Am I good at this? Should I be doing this? And then some of us, our lives at home were a mess. Mine was a mess. I didn't live anywhere. Some people wanted to finish school because a friend was in college the entire time we were touring.
Online or?
He was doing at home when he was here and he was doing online. And when we stopped, he went and like finished it up. And I respect that. Absolutely. And I'm glad that we did because I can't imagine what would have happened if we would have just kept trying to keep on. Because again, we didn't feel like we were being properly supported by our team. So that was also pretty detrimental to us.
What were the conversations like? Were you guys saying, okay, we're taking a break from touring, from writing? Did things just naturally fizzle out?
We were literally at that show that I was talking about, and we were sitting in the van together.
The balcony show.
Yeah, the balcony show. And I can't remember exactly if it was Nick or Fran. I think it was probably Fran. He just said, man, I'm done. And I didn't have the feeling I thought I was going to because I was sitting in the back and I just thought in my head, me too. And I looked at Nick and I knew what he was going through at the time. And I knew he needed to go home. And I knew that he couldn't be touring. And it was the right move to make. It was literally that easy.
Easy. I mean, that sounds like it would be brutal though. At the same time.
It wasn't because we were so exhausted.
Yeah.
Because I had literally spent 2012 to 2016, 24 hours a day. Just what are we doing today? What can we do? What's next?
Just nonstop
band life. And I had no life at home because I probably lost sight of a lot of things. My friends were gone. My connection to my family, which was not a lot to begin with, was non-existent. Again, I didn't know what 5 years looked like in the future. I had no idea. I was just aimlessly alive. And at the same time, people would argue, you're doing your dreams. And it's like, I didn't dream about this. You know, I didn't dream about getting all the music taken away and on a time schedule and sliding out in vans on icy roads and sleeping in a Walmart parking lot.
People don't realize how non-glamorous it is.
Yeah. The thing that's sad is if we never signed to a label, it would have been so different because we were already landing tours without a label. Our manager at the time, who was someone here, actually the promoter for the show last night, he was our manager and we were doing great when the Fantasy Effect was out. And he thought himself, he's like, I'm not good enough to be your manager because you guys are starting to do too much stuff. And he thought it was the right thing to do for him to pass us along to someone that was more well known. And we just totally got taken for a ride. But you can't dwell on that shit because what happened. And I couldn't imagine not being where I am now.
And then did you expect like we're done for good? Or was there always a thought like, oh, I think we're going to come back just some point later?
What happened is Fran was done and he quit because he was like, I'm done with music. I had no idea what to expect and I wasn't going to ask anything with Nick. And Patty and I were under the agreement and understanding that we were going to continue writing music together. And we actually did at first when we got home. We wrote Marionette and Synthetics, Psychosis. I think those were the first songs that were written for Willow.
Yeah. So what was going on during the hiatus? Because I came on board right in 2016, right? And during that 2016 to 2019, I remember, regularly checking your guys' Instagrams and just kind of seeing. And I know here and there you would say, yeah, like there'll be another album coming at some point in the future. But like you guys were very quiet on social media. And I was wondering if that was kind of a conscious choice just to kind of let things die down for a bit and not have any expectations of you. And
that was definitely a part of it because I didn't want people to constantly be sitting around waiting. I didn't want to say like, oh, get ready, because I knew I was going to write no matter what. I knew eventually I was going to finish something and put it out, but it started becoming so that I had no idea what kind of journey that would be and how much I would have to take on to make that happen. In 2017, we had a lot of stuff done and then everything just kind of stopped. And I don't know what to do. I've literally never done all of this on my own before. There was always someone and there really wasn't for a long time.
What was going on with you and Patty?
So I think when I was growing up, I really wanted to leave my house. So I left my house when I was 16, 17 years old, and I started working 3 jobs so I didn't have to live there anymore. And when I couldn't do that, and that became too much, because I had to drop out of school to do that. And when I wanted to finish school, I was homeless. And so I was like dumpster diving and eating out of Super America dumpsters because they throw their fucking food out every day. And I'm not recommending anyone do that because it got me really sick. And I was still in a band during all that too, the militia band, and Reflections was starting during that. So my experience from having a really bad home life to doing everything I could to get away from it to having this opportunity with music was like, I realized what that was. And
it's like your escape.
Yeah. And I think Patty was lucky enough to just, all he knew was playing guitar. And I think he felt very crushed. He had no idea when we were going to tour again. He was not used to having to be a normal person. I think that was a lot to process. And it was a lot for me to process too.
Just being back home. Working at Hot Topic, right?
Yeah. I was almost a decade. I mean, the first team I was there with, they were nice enough to let me work there whenever I'd be home.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was super cool. That's a story for another day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so trying to imagine experiencing all that kind of for the first time, I'm sure it was a shell shock, and we just kind of stopped talking. I mean, there would be months that would go by where I wouldn't hear from him. And maybe even sometimes half a year. And I'd be living at this practice space and all I'm doing is writing drums and like recording garbage guitars and, just trying to get something together. And then we'd finally meet up and we'd have this really, really productive day. And then I wouldn't hear from him again. And it was just like, what is happening?
Yeah. And it's hard when you don't have the spark,
Yeah. Like you're saying, he is experiencing writer's block.
Yeah, man, that's rough. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you guys fans and album streams, like, didn't it kind of increase and become a cult following like while you guys were gone?
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
I don't know if it has to do more with when we put the color clear out, Spotify wasn't quite the engine that it is now. But yeah, when we stopped touring, everything started increasing a lot. I mean, we put the color clear out and I think we did 1 or 2 tours off of it. We put the color clear out in September of 2015 and we were done within a year of that. So we really didn't even get a chance to go play it. And we weren't what I would consider a really big band by any means. So it's not like we put an album out and the whole world knows it's there already. You know, we relied on touring to get our music out there. So as Spotify and streaming started becoming more of a thing as we were gone, we were lucky enough that people continued to bring that into their library, which caused probably some of the algorithms to notice that and suggest us. And I do think that it really helped. Like you said, it did seem to build like this cult following to it.
Yeah, man, that's cool. And that must have been encouraging. You're like, okay, people do still care about this. And like, we can come back and we can make more music and people are going to listen, you know?
It was awesome to see. And it was also disheartening because it was like, you know, you feel like you're missing out on something at the same time because, you
like
know,
the fan base is there, but you're not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like, not only that, but like, I can't even post anything right now because what am I going to post? What am I going to say? I have nothing to update these people. And I don't just want to be sitting there telling people to buy merch for 4 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I don't know.
Well, I know exactly what you mean because Space Waves, you know, my movie has taken 4 years to do. You know, we're doing it all ourselves. We're just young, fresh out of film school. Like I said, I was 21 when I wrote it in 2017. I was 22 when we shot it in 2018. And then we premiered it in August 2021 and I was 25. Now I'm 26 and it's finally going to be releasing 2022. And so for years, man, it's been tough because everyone's asking, when's the movie coming out? When's the movie coming out? And like, even on our social media for Space Waves, it's like, we don't like to post too much because I just feel bad because I'm like, dude,
exactly.
Like everyone's been waiting forever. And like, I know they're going to like it. I know people are going to relate with it and connect and really love it. But it's hard, yeah, because I don't want to just be like, hey, keep buying merch for a movie you haven't seen yet.
Right.
And I want to interact with the fan base because there is a real fan base, kind of like you guys organically getting a following, like with the whole Rudy situation, with Rudy being on that Netflix show. There's been a lot of his fans that have just been coming over, finding our page and messaging us like, when's the movie coming out and all this stuff. And I'm like stoked, but I'm also, it's just been a real test of patience and a real test of character.
Yeah.
But it's been exciting because I'm like, okay, I'm not going to give up on this. And you just kind of know, you just got to have that inner resolve that like, I'm going to finish what I started and it's going to be worth it when it happens.
Yep, exactly.
So circling back to Willow, you guys went fully independent on that one. We were kind of talking about this earlier off air, but once you have that solid, engaged fan base, you really don't need a label to make money and to do it yourself. And do you feel like that's been the case with you guys with Willow being independent?
Yes, there are definitely some things that a label can come in handy with. The thing of it is that I probably have just yet to make the right connection because like merch is expensive. And a lot of times your label might put you up with someone that'll front your merch order for you or something. That's kind of nice. But I don't really want to tour. The income that we have from being independent again is totally enough. And the fact of the matter is, if we were going to tour, probably could. It's just the feeling of rolling the dice. But that comes back to having to believe in yourself and your brand. And I'm well aware that Willow was not what anyone was probably expecting or necessarily hoping for. But again, I don't want to write music that isn't true to what's happening. I think it was not really picked up at first. And again, people came back to it. And I think people especially came back to it once the world was kind of shut down for a minute. And
yeah, they needed some angsty aggression.
Yeah, exactly. Needed some down-tuned guitars.
Right. They needed to let out that inner bark. I love in that song Help where you're like, oh, right. Dude, then last night at the show, everyone did it. Oh my gosh, that was so cool.
Dude. Yeah,
I love that.
I don't know. That was just an album that had a different kind of energy. And, you know, that album was really meant to be played live. That was the whole thing. with that album, because even when we were coming to the end of writing The Color Clear, we knew that we wanted to do an album that was just heavy, because a lot of the times those songs really translate live, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really disappointing when we didn't get to do that. But yeah, last night, finally getting to do it was really fun. Yeah, I think every time we put music out, it's not going to be the same.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. Always something new, always something fresh. How'd you guys come up with the name and the artwork for Willow?
Yeah, so sometimes I'll try and go places to write lyrics. And I wrote a lot of the lyrics for Willow under a willow tree. And the willow tree commonly, is a metaphor symbolic for strength and growth and overcoming. And also, like, when you think of overcoming, generally you think of things that weren't very pleasant to experience. So, and that's kind of what that album felt like to me. And the artwork is actually the first time I've ever made artwork, because I'm not good at drawing. But sometimes, especially when I was younger, I like to try and draw things. And in my teen years, sometimes I would draw what I saw myself as. And that is what the artwork for Willow is. But basically I took a really, really long time to do it. I started with pencil, moved on to chalk, brought it into Photoshop, and really started messing with it a lot.
Chalk, really?
Yeah, black chalk, to really just black out the paper and move stuff around, and then bumping up contrast and exposure to make it look like paint and stuff like that. But that artwork is me. It's what I see in myself. It's the trauma. It's the persona of the depression and the anxiety.
The shadow self.
Yeah, more or less. And I actually saw that before I made that artwork. I literally saw that because there was a night where I was using mushrooms, and I got a little ahead of myself because I consider myself, an experienced user in these things.
Inexperienced or
experienced? But I made a mistake, and I started not realizing that I was just sitting there eating this bag of mushrooms, and I ate well over a half ounce, and I started having hallucinations that were completely uncontrollable. I couldn't even see anymore. I mean, I can't even explain to you really what was happening. And I kept having this thought in my head. I was I kept telling myself I wasn't going to die, because I was you can't overdose on psilocybin. But then I was but you can have a heart attack because you're freaking out.
So then you're trying not to have a heart attack.
Yeah. And then I started hearing my own voice externally, coming from the outside. I was standing next to myself, and it was you know what you have to do to make this stop. I wasn't even moving my body, but I walked over to a drawer where I knew I had a pair of scissors, and my hand grabbed them. And I was what is happening right now? And I put them back down, and I was standing there, and I looked in the mirror, and the scissors were back in my hand. And I was dude, what is happening? Not me, but I was telling myself that if I wanted this to stop, I just had to kill myself. And I was looking in a mirror, and my eyes, the white in my eyes was yellow. I don't know why. And I was dripping, just sweating profusely. And, the reflection of myself was doing things that I didn't think that I was doing. It was I could see myself stabbing myself, and I thought it was real.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought I was dead. I thought I was out in the middle of a street. I physically thought I was in a hospital. And it wasn't I was there. It was it would be there and it would be gone. And I'd be back in there again. And then I would be out in the street, and I didn't know where I was. And then I looked in the mirror again, and I didn't see myself. I saw that artwork. And I was fuck, I'm dead. I died. And my wife came down the stairs. I turned around, and it was everything stopped for a second. She later told me she came down because it was so quiet. And usually when I was down there doing music stuff or something, she could kind of hear it upstairs when she was sleeping. And she got nervous because I was down there, and it had been quiet for so long. And I just turned around, and I looked at her, and I was and I couldn't, it was so weird. It was she was there, and everything around her made no sense. And I was just help me. And she was what is going on? I was I fucked up. And I didn't know what to say. And I had succumbed to temporary paralysis in my legs. I literally couldn't walk. I had to crawl up the stairs. And I literally was like laying in bed with her, and I couldn't even speak anymore because like I couldn't move my jaw, and I didn't know if I was alive anymore. And it took like 4 or 5 hours for that to go away, and for me to like start being able to move my feet again. Like, you know, that really freaked me out. And then I was like, I need to make that. I know what I saw because it was like seeing that reflected.
That's insane, man. That's That's really crazy. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, man. That's crazy.
People deserve to know.
That is too crazy, dude. I don't even have words for that one. Damn. Okay. Well, transitioning back to the label situation, I guess, unless you don't want to go there,
No, it's all good.
But yeah, I'm kind of curious of what the process was like getting out of the label contract, because you're supposed to do one more record with that label, but then you got out of it.
So our understanding when we signed to a label was that we had a 3-contract deal, but the third album was optional. What we didn't understand was that the optional meant it was optional for the label, not for us.
Oh my.
So basically, if we were tanking, they could say, get out of here. But if we were doing good, then we had to do it.
You did the second album with them as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we did Exist and The Color Clear with them. And so they were expecting another album.
And of course, The Color Clear is doing good. So then they won another one.
What we had just talked about, that experience in the van where everyone basically was like, we're done. That had just happened. And we got home and I knew that I wanted to keep making music. And I also knew that I probably didn't have a band to tour with and that I wasn't going to replace anybody, you know, because it wasn't a band. It is a family. And I messaged them and I said, hey, this is what's going on. We can't tour anymore. That being said, is there any possibility that we can get out of our contract just so we can have that peace of mind? You know, because I don't know if we're going to write an album in time that you want it. And even if, you know,
do they have deadlines for that?
Yeah, you have your tour cycle is 18 months. So they expect a new record roughly every 18, 20 months.
Yeah.
Which seems like a lot of time.
No,
but
but
it's
not,
really
when you're, not when you're touring.
Not when you're touring. Not
you don't
when
really
you're
have time
trying
to write.
Really focus and write something new and art videos, concepts, you know. And the response I got back was, what's the rush?
They're like, we'll wait.
And I was like, well, I'm not going to sit here and write a record to just give it to you. It'll never happen. I will never write music again until this time runs out on the contract, which was like 7 more years or something. I don't have any motivation to write music right now because you guys take everything. And then I got no response for months, you know, and then I had to email someone else, and then I had to email someone else. And then I had to get our old manager who, you know, at this point was becoming more known throughout the industry, and he emailed them, you know, and then we had to CC everyone that we had their emails on one email. And it was like, why can't we get out of this contract? It was optional. And it's like, well, it's not optional for the band. It's optional for the label. And then they were like, well, why don't we do an acoustic EP of The Color Clear? And it's like, because no one's here right now. And again, I don't just want to hand over something to you.
Yeah, it wouldn't be genuine whatsoever.
No, it would be some forced, you know.
And then you'd have to live with that for the rest of your life. Like, oh, that's one of our official releases and our heart's not in that at all.
Right. Like this was literally just to get out of a contract, you know. And it's just like, it just didn't feel right on all ends. You know, it didn't feel right to do that. And it also didn't feel right being treated that way. Cause it's like, you know, I get it that money makes the world go around, but bands aren't supposed to just be a product. It's art, and it's a process. So I think there was back and forth with that for about 2 or 3 years. And through the fighting, I still wrote music knowing that there was no way in hell I was ever going to let them release it.
You'll just save it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And eventually we got the email from somebody that just said, you're good.
No signatures or anything else?
No, but it was in the chain of the email. And then, you know, after that, it was like, so we're confirming that Reflections has exited their contract. And it was like, yes, the contract's been terminated. And then
I bet you guys celebrated on that one.
Yeah, I did. And then all of a sudden, because we were getting small royalty payments, like not a lot, but we were getting small royalty payments. And then the next one that came through, all of a sudden we were like 25 grand in debt.
What? What do you mean? That's not payment. That's a bill. They send you a bill.
Not a bill, but it was showing our royalty statement went from being in the green to being in the red. So all the money that we would make in royalties now was paying off the debt.
Wow. They just screwed you once again.
So, I mean, that's
Did they
how
have
it felt.
any explanation?
No. And I've actually,
my.
I've been asking for explanations on that to this day and still not gotten a clear answer. But again, I'm well aware that I can't take on that monster by myself, and that no lawyer is going to want to do some shit for small fry metalcore band. You know what I mean?
Well, you'd be surprised. We found a good... We found a good lawyer, and we're small fries, first-time filmmakers. So I think they're out there. It just depends on if it's worth it to you, or
And that's the thing. It's like
it seems like you're kind of over this whole thing.
I am. I mean, I consider Reflections honestly kind of a blacklisted band in the industry because of all this. Because of the experiences. Like when we went to our first studio thing, there was kind of like some struggles there because we didn't have a very good time. And then like the dude tried saying that we were using heroin there, and he like sent a picture of a clipped guitar string and said, just found a needle on the floor. And it's like,
what?
Yeah. And it's like, and you have to think about it. It's like that dude went and told 20 other people that.
Dude, that's so messed up.
And I can only imagine what, me doing what I've done where they say I'm a fucking Punisher or something because I wanted to stand up for myself. But whatever, dude. I feel a lot better now, honestly.
Yeah, I think the independent route is so much more freedom.
It is. And I mean, everything you need is here. Depending on what you want to do. If you want to be a pop star or super crazy something, go sign to a label. If you just want to like do your thing without someone's fingers in it, stay independent. Push yourself.
Yeah, no one's ever going to care more about your art than you will.
No.
Right?
Nope.
And so, yeah, I briefly mentioned it to you before we were recording, but that's why myself and Andrew, the producer of Space Waves, decided to go the self-distribution route, because it was like, wait, we're just going to get taken advantage of, right? And there's a whole dream to it when you're young of like, oh, be on a label, and you have this recognition, you have what's the word? Legitimacy.
It's like a sign of stature.
Yeah. And it's this legitimacy. But then you grow up and you start maturing and you start realizing these people are just in it to make money. And they've been around for decades doing the same thing every year, taking advantage of these young, bright-eyed filmmakers and musicians and stuff. Yep. And then they just take advantage of you. And so I'm so glad we kind of learned that. And with Space Waves being a very like DIY project, self-funded by myself, my producer, our families, and then a couple investors, and we just kind of paid it off over time. And that's why the movie took so freaking long to make, was because we would pay for the sound design and then we'd run out of money, and then we'd have to save up for 6 months and then pay for the color grade, and then just super, super long. But doing it that way is really the saving grace, because then it's like we retain the full rights of the movie. We have the total freedom to be like, okay, we're going to release it this way or that way or whatever. There's no middleman and gatekeepers.
Right.
And we just decided like, we don't want to operate in this traditional Hollywood machine, because that's not who we are. That's not what we've been from the beginning. It's just been a bunch of kids trying to make a movie, So why are we trying to play in this Hollywood game that, I'm pretty bitter about it, because I mean, all they really care about is like, okay, do you have name talent in your movie? Do you have festival laurels and awards? Do you have good reviews? Do you have diversity in your movie? Do you have this and this and this? And it really just becomes down to like this ridiculous checkbox, and it's no longer about the art, and it's just about appeasing these gray-haired guys behind desks that are like,
the criteria?
Do you meet the criteria? And I'm like, that's not what this movie is about,
Right.
And it's kind of funny too. I mean, if anybody's gonna like bash on Space Waves for no diversity, it's like, dude, one, we shot in my hometown where it's over 90% white and it's a tiny small town. And two, we literally were just taking whatever actors we could find at the time, dude. And we just had people bailing left, right. We're just like, please be in our movie.
Wow.
Right? So I just think, I think people are too sensitive, and there's too much crap going on with all that just in the Hollywood industry, and they don't give you a chance. They don't, like I said, they don't care about the art itself and the story. And that's what it needs to be about, is the art and the story.
100%.
I think really once you, like I was saying, once you get to that age and you start learning how to be strategic about your art, treating your art like a business, while still retaining the artistry, but also realizing, okay, I can be an entrepreneur and I can actually make money off of this if I do it right. If I build up my audience, if I outsource certain things while still keeping a close eye on it, whatever. That's why we chose to do self-distribution and really just keep full creative control and chart our own destiny, right?
Exactly.
So I'm sure you guys really relate with that now.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what we're doing, because now we write and record everything. And like you're saying, outsourcing, it's like I trust a few producers to put that polishing touch on that I wouldn't want to do myself, purely because I think it's important to bestow that trust a little bit and get that outside source,
Yeah. And so when you work with producers, I'm assuming it's a pay up front and then they give it to you. They don't like take dividends on the back end.
It depends. I mean, because Jeff, for example, never asked for anything because he was really excited, but I wanted him to care.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to pay you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you royalties, you know,
that's awesome.
Because just because you said you would do it for free doesn't mean you should, you know what I mean? And that's just how I kind of think about it. And, but we have had situations where it's just royalties, and we've had more frequently than not. It is an upfront thing, and maybe knock something off the price of upfront if you want to do royalties, or if there's no royalties involved, then it's just a flat rate.
Yeah, and I'm sure it might be a little different for music, but for film and for myself and my small team, we're of the mindset of like, okay, we'd much rather pay for everything up front and not have to worry about
doing that too.
Yeah, not have to worry about royalties later, just because it's complicated and you have people being like, "Where's my money?" Oh my gosh,
I've been that way my whole life. I don't like debt. I don't like owing people. I like getting it over with.
Yeah.
And like, I never had a credit card before 2 years ago because I always lived within my means. And
did you just do cash or what?
Yeah, whatever I had.
You had a debit card.
Yeah, I had a debit card.
But no credit card.
I had never had a credit card. And
Dude,
then
that's good, man.
it was good until I wanted to buy a house and they're like, psych. And I'm just like, what? Like, look at everything. Like, I'm good to go. And they're like, yeah, but you don't have a credit score.
I don't understand that, because it's like they want you to show that you're being in debt and that you've paid things off, whereas if you just haven't had any debt, that's somehow worse.
Right. And it didn't make sense because I had to take out a loan to build credit. I couldn't get a credit card because I had no credit history. So I had to do one of the buy credit cards or whatever. And he's like, just put $2,000. I'm like, so I got to spend all this money? What the hell? This doesn't make any sense.
It's so backwards.
God.
Oh, man. Okay, so I want to talk about, the stylistic change on Willow. So you guys have a couple different sounds you guys do really well, but obviously you can't please everyone. I'm curious how you separate the fans' opinion of your music versus your own. I think you've touched on this a little bit, but
I think, and I kind of said it before, every time that we write music, it's going to be different because we are constantly experiencing different things, and at a different point in our lives. We'll probably never win everyone over with a release. I will say that the next like full length album that we're doing, I think everyone's really going to like. It's probably going to take some time, but with the change for Willow, it was just, it was representative of what we were going through. And we just wanted to try that out and see what it was like. And we didn't.
I think you guys definitely gained some new fans.
It's really funny how many people I did another conversation with someone, and they were like, man, I love Willow, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, and then I found The Color Clear. And I was like, wow, that's really weird, to think about that. Because it's like, and that dude probably hadn't even found the other two albums. So I'm just like, wow, like there's a whole new generation.
Yeah, that don't even know about your previous stuff.
Exactly. Or about us at all. There were people that just found out about us from Willow or even from Silhouette. We got a bunch of people that kind of were exclusively in the pocket of Humanity's Last Breath and Village that were like, oh, cool. And then they found Willow and they're like, this is ridiculous. And it's just like, it's cool. Because it's a totally different fan base though.
Yeah, and I could see how that kind of polarized your fan base a bit. Me personally, I mean, I still like Willow, but obviously The Color Clear is kind of...
I think it has more to offer.
Yeah. But of course, they're both good for different things. I mean, when I want to just get pumped up for something, I'm like, I'll throw on From Nothing.
Yeah,
and just,
it's the gym song.
Well, and it's the roll-up song. When you got to perfectly, you know what I'm talking about? You have to perfectly time when you're rolling up to something and you want people to know what you're listening to. And then the ending breakdown of From Nothing hits, and then you just get out of the car and like whip off your sunglasses, put it on your leather jacket.
That's awesome.
I
do know what you're talking about.
Yes, you do. Dude, I got a subwoofer in the back of my car.
Oh, dang.
Oh my gosh, dude. It's insane, dude.
Hopefully our stuff's mixed well enough so it doesn't break it.
Oh, it is, dude.
Okay,
it definitely is. No, but this is just a little side tangent, but the bass drops in The Color Clear are huge, dude.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's awesome. But it's interesting because Willow, there isn't really a lot of bass drops, I noticed.
Yeah, Jeff wanted to not use 808 drops. I originally wrote it with a ton of 808 drops, and there's like sub impacts as opposed to drops.
Like the Who one? That one?
Yeah. I kind of wish there were the 808s. The 808s I brought back for the live show, and that might be, you know,
I love the bass drops.
See, I do too.
You got to bring it back.
That's what I'm
Jake.
saying. Because he was like, I don't think people really do this anymore. I'm like, but I do. Like, you know?
I do. There's a few in there though, which
there's
is
a
cool.
couple that had to be there, but
Yeah. But I will say I was really impressed with how heavy it was without there being bass drops. And I was like, it was a cool thing to witness as well. You know?
That's cool. That's good to know.
Yeah.
But all hail the 808s.
Yeah, dude, definitely. So talk to me a little bit more about working with Jeff Key, because I'd never heard of him before. And I don't know how much he was involved with like the guitar tone itself, but I remember being so impressed that it could be so heavy without it even being a breakdown or without it even having like an 808 drop, right? So tell me about getting that heavy sound with him.
Jeff was literally the saving grace for Willow, because originally back in 2017, I had started talking to Buster about producing Willow. Originally, Mick Gordon was supposed to mix Willow. And that was in like 2016. I had contacted him and because we had some songs, and then things started taking so long, communication just dropped, and I felt like
bet he's very busy.
Yeah, no, he's crazy busy too. So that's why I was like, wow, I can't believe he even got back to me. You know, so and then when 6 months went by of me not being able to give an update, I'm like, I just can't even keep, you know.
That must have been so disheartening.
It was really disheartening because the Doom had just come out, and I was just like, oh my God, you know, I was just like, but then, you know, Buster had reached out before. He's like, hey, if you ever want mixing done or anything, like, let me know.
Really? After hearing the Color Clear?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep. Because I think, you know, even when I listen to the Color Clear, obviously that's probably like one of my favorite sounding albums that we've done. But I do wish that like the heavier songs, like the guitar tone was a little different, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, because the guitar tone is pretty much the same through the whole record.
And that's interesting you say that, because I've thought about it too, and I've kind of thought both ways. I'm like, could have been cooler if it was
Heavily
heavier
produced
or whatever.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, it's unique in the way that when it gets even further down tuned, it just gets more distorted, and it doesn't even really sound like a guitar. And I'm like, that's pretty cool in its own right as well. But I also think what's really interesting is that the Color Clear has a very organic feel to it,
right?
Which I'm sure a lot of people really love, and it seems like a very unique choice for like a heavy album. Like it sounds like you're in the room and you're hearing it through the amp, and it's still super heavy, but it's just different.
I think those were real amps that were recorded.
Right.
Yep. So yeah, no, I totally agreed. And that was again the kind of the thing with Willow. We were like, let's try and bring this into like a more digital sound, but also at the same time, you know, when Patty does like his crazy runs, it keeps the organic thing because it's not perfect. That's one thing I like about Willow, is that it isn't perfect, you know.
What do you mean?
Like there's little nuances and string noises or this and that there that like probably could have been cut out, but it's like it happened. And sometimes those little this and that all over the place, like those things kind of can make a record, even if it's just a little weird thing. But yeah, because I was talking to Buster, and again, basically the same thing happened. I talked to him in 2017, and it's 2018. All of a sudden, I'm like, I got nothing, dude. You know, because he would email me again. He's like, how are things going? And I'm like, shit, you know. And then it got to the point where I thought Patty was going to produce it, because Patty can actually get a pretty mean mix on stuff now, but communication just kept popping up.
Yeah, and that's a huge job.
It is. And then when Jeff stepped in, that was just like, it was so nice, because what he was handed to work with was not something probably any other producer would have accepted to work with, because, you know, I know a lot of people record with different guitars on an album, but they probably don't record with different guitars like per different section of the song. You know, they might like have a different guitar.
Why'd you do that?
Because we would like write 2 minutes of a song, and then I would come back and Patty would have changed the pickups in his guitar, and like now the song doesn't sound the same. And
do you guys mash songs together, like pieces?
yeah, sometimes we'll write something here and be like, that could work with this thing, and you know, throw them together. So it was just a totally pieced together bunch of stuff, and I think as about as best as it could have been. He really gave it a mix that provided some like continuity to it.
Yeah, no, that's good. You said he was just super eager, and was he a young guy?
I'm not sure how old he is. I actually think I believe he's younger than me.
I haven't heard any of the other stuff he's done. Is he like a newcomer, or has he been around for a while?
He's pretty fresh. More traditionally, he did a lot more like tech stuff, like a lot of blast beats and really refined stuff. So I think Willow was also really like different for him, but he was great to work with, and we're actually still working with him on some of our new stuff now.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask about that. I was going to get into the new EP that we're doing, but before that, we'll just continue on the timeline. Do you want to talk about how it was working with Buster?
Yeah,
because it looks like that finally came about.
Yeah, it did. Because after Willow came out, I started noticing Victims was a band that I noticed do a split EP with someone, and it was really cool. And I was like, man, if we could do a split EP with a band, like what would just be really weird and like cool. And then I was like, I've been talking to Buster for years. I emailed him and I was like, dude, what would you think about doing a collaboration on something? And he was like, I don't really do that, but you can ask Kale. And I was like, okay, I've been listening to Village Arta for 10 years. Absolutely. And he just threw him on the email chain and we started talking, and it was great because it was working with those two, and Buster was still a huge part of it. But Kale wrote these 3 songs, sent them over to me, and they were just really mind bending.
So did he write?
Yeah. He
okay.
wrote all the guitars and like the skeleton of the drums. And I actually really took those songs and tried to make them a little easier to follow. Because when he first sent them, it was like, this is crazy. And it's like even kind of hard for me to follow along sometimes. So I tried to add like
a little more
consistency. You know, there's a part in Coda where he does this thing that's like, down, down, down. I was like, man, because it was like 5 seconds. I think I brought it back in 2 times and changed it into another thing. And I was just like, and I really heavily edited the drums. And like whenever I write drums, I always try and think, because Nick's a much better drummer than me. He is like a schooled drummer. Like he went to like classes with Benny Greb and like all these really good drummers. I have like always been more of a like self-taught, like just learning. And a lot of the stuff I do is probably like incorrect. And I actually have a cyst in my wrist from poor technique for a lot of years. But whenever I write drums, I always try and think of like what Nick would do.
That's sweet. I'm sure he'd love to hear that.
Yeah, no. And it pushes me as a drummer too, because then I'm like, well, fuck, I want to do that too. Having someone like Nick has just been really awesome, because as a drummer, just having like someone to nerd out with has been awesome. But by the time that the writing got back and it got to Buster, he was so fun to work with, because then he started adding stuff to it too. Sound effects were coming in and like big reverses and swells, and you know, he probably sent it back and forth to me 5-6 times. And I didn't even ask. He'd like send me a mix and he'd be like, Reflections mix 1. I'd be like, oh man, this sounds awesome. You know, like this is really cool. And then like 2 days later, he'd be like, Reflections mix 2. And I'm like, oh, you're still working on it. Like,
was it just getting better and better?
Yeah, it was just getting crazier every time. And I was just like, wow, this is really awesome. Yeah, he was just real fun to work with. Like, they're just fun and funny guys. So
yeah, it seems like it. I just heard a podcast with Buster, and it was just cool hearing about his process. And he was saying like, yeah, I write in a way where he's like, we have to dumb it down to play it live, you know? And he's like, I like just he's like, it's totally fine that, you know, it's very electronically produced and just trying to make the craziest music possible. And they're not like some purist that's like, oh no, you have to be able to play it all together at once and whatever. It's like, no, part of the fun is being able to make music that's kind of transcending even what you could do physically, you know, and I don't know, that's something new that's happened with technology, and that's progressing, and that's very exciting.
Yeah. I think it's about time that gets accepted into metal music, because metal has always kind of had these refining walls on it where it's like, don't write music that you can't necessarily do. And it's like, well, why does every other genre get to do that then? Yeah, literally. Especially when you look at electronic music now. And I always thought that dubstep was like heavily influenced by some modern metal music.
Yeah, the drops are like breakdowns.
Exactly. And then it probably went back over to where a lot of metal was being influenced by dubstep too. So it's like, yeah, why not just pull it all together?
Did you ever get into the electronic core?
I never did. I really got into like ambient music. I exclusively listen to music without lyrics in it. I don't listen to any music that has vocals in it, hardly. except for maybe some bands here and there.
Oh, I was actually referencing the electronic metalcore, like
the Browning
Icy
and
Star.
stuff?
Yeah, the Browning, Icy Stars, Issues, and Palisades.
Never got into those.
Yeah. Because you were
Browning's dope.
into the super heavy stuff when those guys rolled around, so I could see you not wanting to.
Dude,
go back.
I get people looking at me like I'm crazy when I tell them I've never listened to My Chemical Romance.
I never did either.
Yeah, see, I don't know, and it's fine.
Yeah, Issues and Icy Stars and Palisades. Those were like my gateway into
Really?
metalcore. Yeah, because I was super into.
So you would call that metalcore?
Yeah, I mean, it's like Rise Records,
Sure,
whatever.
yeah.
It's
Yep.
kind of that era of metalcore, like the Warped Tour metalcore, you know?
Yeah.
And so those were the bands, because I was really into dubstep in 2011 when it like hit, and I was like a freshman in high school in 2010, 2011. And then I found Issues, King of Amarillo, and I was like, whoa, like, it's got like these dubstep electronic with the metalcore, and I don't know, I just loved it. So got into that, and then things got heavier and whatever. Yep. And dude, I lived at Warped Tour. I loved it. It was
that's
amazing. Awesome. But anyway, I want to talk about the new EP that you have coming up. Does it have a name yet? Can we drop the name?
Yeah, sure. The EP is called Crystallize.
Another black and white.
Yeah, I think it will be. While it reads as two separate words as crystallize, it's actually in reference to the crystallized self, which is it's about how we are like kind of a product of the environment that we're in and how we're constantly changing. We can choose the changes that we make and to become like the person that you're going to be. It's like pushing everything that we've done recently to the point where it's like almost, you could call it like noisecore.
Jake, you're killing me, dude. It just gets heavier and heavier, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of these songs, I mean, these are also the lowest tuned songs that we've ever done. We have the guitars tuned so low now that we're not doing the octave down stuff because it's like already down there. And when I was working with Buster and Kale, like Willow, I thought Willow had a lot of like automation on it and like the down tune stuff and pitch and all this stuff. And then when I was working with them and when Cicada was that whole beginning, I was like, okay, so you can just do whatever the fuck you want.
The first part of the song. Dude, I gotta say, when I first heard that, I was mind blown. I'd never heard anything like that. And it's like, dude, we've been into this genre for so long. It's kind of rare or whatever to hear something completely new that blows your mind. Yeah. And, we live for those moments. We chase that. We're like, we want to hear something that's so sick and brand new. So yeah, what was that? Is it just like scraping the pick?
Scraping and volume automation.
I was mind blown. And I'll always remember my buddy Alex Volman. I showed him that, and he's not a metal guy at all, and he was like, dude, this is like twisting and stretching plastic wrap. It's like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, dude. And I just loved it. So yeah, sorry, nerding out over that one, but I would love to hear more stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. How did we get talking about that? That intro?
Yeah, well, the EP, like you were saying, like really can do whatever you want. We've been trying to make this as out of the box as possible and use the entire guitar as much as we can.
Yeah, more weird noises.
Yeah,
crazy.
Like I'm really not kidding when I say it could be like noisecore. It's kind of like paralyzing at times because it's like, it's just a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And some of the songs are like 6-7 minutes long.
Whoa. Now, is any of it, I know you might be getting to more of this on like your next full length or whatever. Is there going to be any like ambient sections or anything?
There's a lot of ambience involved.
Okay, that gets me excited because I was kind of missing that on Willow a bit. And I think it's cool because it can really give the listener like a break, which then makes it, when it comes back in heavy, it makes it that much more impactful, because you have a second to breathe and then you get punched in the face again.
We were trying to rush this and get it out, but why?
No, yeah, I know, right? Take your time with it, you know? So yeah, you said a couple of longer tracks. That's exciting. How about, how many tracks do you think? Has that been solidified yet? Or
I think it's shaping up to be about 6.
Cool.
And I beyond that, I think it might become a little too much.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need to. You could always just save stuff, ideas for
And again, some of the
later
songs are so long that they're almost worth a song or two, or 2 or 3 songs themselves. So,
well, that's exciting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that whenever that comes out. Let's talk about the Fantasy Effect. because I know you've talked about it a little bit over the years, saying, hey, we're going to try to redo it or redo some stuff on it. So,
well, that is about 90% done.
yes, dude, that's so exciting. I can't wait. So yeah, I mean, the production on the first one is
apartment mixing, bro.
It's your humble beginnings,
It was, dude. It was just where it all began.
And that's cool though, because
you know what's sad too is there was a Fantasy Effect recorded before that one came out, and Patty's computer crashed, and we lost almost everything.
that whole album.
Not only did we lose the album, he lost his plugins, he lost his sample library, he lost all the tones that he had made. So like we literally, I think we fetched the MIDI and old project sessions from a different computer and had to try and get it back to where it was before. And I think that kind of came through, but at the same time, I was super
brutal.
Yeah, no, it was crazy.
Do you think it came out better the second time around?
Honestly, I don't think so. I think the first one was a little cleaner recorded.
Yeah.
I think you can hear in the second time the frustration, but at the same time, it added to it because it's like no one will ever say that those songs are like super heavily automated or anything. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because that was definitely not.
Dude, I can relate with you on the devastation though, dude, because for Space Waves, we had two main hard drives, right? Where we backed everything up, or so we thought, you know, the entire movie, all the scenes and everything. And it took us like 2.5 years to film the entire thing. So we went back, we reshot things, we re-edited, we added things to the movie, you know, because
Gotta do it.
Yeah, you gotta do it, you know. And at the time we were like, okay, let's purchase a third hard drive just to be safe, you know. And since we shot in like 6K, so many terabytes. Yeah, I think of a 90 something minute feature in 6K, like the files are huge. So it's like these hard drives we're buying are, I don't know, hundreds or $1,000 or something. I don't even know, a couple thousand or whatever. You have to ask Alex. But we had a third one coming in the mail just to be safe. And while this one is coming in the mail, our main hard drive during that week, he plugs it in and it just starts smoking, dude.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And we're like, dude, no. And it just wouldn't turn on or anything. And we're like, oh my gosh. So we're like, okay, luckily we have everything backed up on the second hard drive. We plug in the second hard drive and we check. Everything is there except one scene, one shoot date. For some reason, the footage wasn't backed up. So we're missing one scene and we're like, we can't go reshoot this, or at least we don't want to reshoot this. Like, it's not practical whatsoever. And so the only option was to go to a hard drive recovery center, and we had to pay out of pocket, like, I think $2,500 or $3,000. And we were just about to spend that on like going towards our sound design or something. And so that was brutal. So we paid that, and luckily they recovered the footage, you know.
Wow.
It was devastating because it set us back months, because then it was like, okay, now Andrew and I both, you know, we're right out of film school, we're working minimum wage jobs. Now we have to keep saving up over the months and then go into sound design or color or whatever.
That's discipline though, dude.
Yeah. And then, yeah, third hard drive came and we were good again. But yeah, that was just one of the many things. And I think, yeah, like I've said, I mean, it just tests your character, you know, and it tests your commitment to the vision.
Yep, exactly.
That's just the tip of the iceberg of things that went wrong with Space Waves. Dude, we're actually putting together a bunch of like documentary behind the scenes content and showing.
That'll be really fun.
Yeah, so you'll have to see it, and I think you'll love it. It's funny too, because watching it, it's like, dude, we shot these interviews right after we filmed Space Waves, so I look so young. All of us look so young, dude.
That's so crazy.
I know, and I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty cool, because hopefully it'll be inspiring to other young, you know, filmmakers and whatever. But it's just funny seeing how young we are.
I literally had that feeling today because this project that I'm working on, Nemertines, just released a music video today that we filmed 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh, you're in it?
Yeah.
What are you doing it again?
Just vocals. He writes all the music for it.
Tell me about your involvement in it, because I looked him up a little bit, but like the info was a little bit sparse, or like, yeah. Tell us about that.
So I saw this single a few years ago called Ticking Time Bomb. It was just an instrumental metal song with like a visual video to it. And it was so fucking good. Honestly, it like really influenced me with what kind of music I wanted to try and write, because it was so, you could hear someone talking to you and telling you what the song was about with no lyrics. You know, that's how I felt anyway. And I didn't really admittedly, I didn't really dive into it that much after that. I just really liked that song and I thought it was really cool.
When was that?
That was probably 2017. And then in 2019, I was trying to really rally everyone together. Like, hey, let's film a music video. Like, I found a producer that we can do this with. Like, you know, let's get everyone together and like, let's do this. I was listening to that song again because I wanted to also try and get everyone into the mood of writing music.
Are you talking get everyone together reflections
Yes.
for the From
Yes.
Nothing video?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
When I started hearing about COVID stuff starting to happen, I had found the album that song was on, and I was like, I really fell in love with it. I was like, wow. I think I even sat down and cried listening to an instrumental record because I was like, holy shit, like this music is speaking to me. And I found out who was writing it because I was like, damn, this would be so cool if someone, you know, I wonder what someone would do over this, you know, because I had thoughts of what I might do. But the images that he puts up, he draws pictures of what appears to be a band, but they're like cartoon figures. So I assumed these must be the 4 people writing this music or something. So,
But it's just one guy.
But it's just one guy, and
Where's he live and what's his
in,
name?
He's in Russia,
Oh, interesting.
and he goes by Sabrina Scissor. I found out he was writing it, and I messaged him one day, and I was just like, I love your music. I'm sure you've heard it a ton because there are a lot of people. You want to talk about a cult following. This guy has it, like, for sure, for his project. And I'm not sure if a lot of the fans are based over there, but like there's a lot of people that really like his music. I messaged him and I was like, I don't know what this music is about for you, but I feel like I really relate to it. You know, I told him I've been a vocalist in this band and I would really like to work on this with you because he had that album recorded. I think it came out in 2015. And I felt like no one paid any fucking attention to it.
Besides the cult following.
Exactly. Besides the people that knew about it already. It's like, this music should be fucking like, I don't know. It's just so good.
So it was just one album. He hadn't done anything since.
No, he's actually released a plethora of music. He's really good at mixing, but that one album, I felt like he really nailed it. And a lot of his releases are like 3 or 4 songs or a single, or like, here's some B-sides that I didn't put out. That one was really cohesive. So I sat there waiting to see what he would say, and he was pretty open to it. And I spent so much time writing lyrics to those songs, and I actually had even written lyrics to the Ticking Time Bomb song years ago, just because I had started having so many thoughts about it. I was like, nothing will ever come of this, but like maybe I'll be able to use this in something else. And then I filmed my parts for a music video here, or 2 music videos here in the US, and he filmed his stuff in Russia. And then we thought we were going to put it out, and then we put Willow out, and then everything really, really started happening. I was like, well, let's just see, like, maybe we'll put it out this summer. Maybe we'll put it out this fall. Maybe we'll put it out next winter. Yeah, maybe we'll put it out. You know, it just kept going.
That sounds like Space Waves. Yeah. And was he fine with that though?
He was bummed every time.
Oh,
and
man.
I was too, you know, because.
And is that because Reflections was taking the forefront?
Yeah, Reflections kept having stuff that was happening, and I wanted to I didn't want to like post that and then be like posting something for Reflections the next week.
Yeah, you want to like give it its proper attention.
Yeah, because like not even just for me, like my whole reason of doing this wasn't for any kind of self gratification. I'm hoping that maybe, and I'm not trying to like say that I have the amount as a figure to do this for somebody, but like I'm hoping maybe my involvement with him will make someone go to his Bandcamp and listen to all his other releases.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm gonna go check it out after this.
That's
for sure.
Exactly. You know, because it's really emotional music. When I was writing the lyrics and I sent them to him because I didn't want to write anything without it's his music. So I want to be, are you good with this? You know,
Did you record vocals on top because that to at least be like, hey, this is what it would sound like? Or did you just send him the sheet?
Initially, I just sent him the lyrics so he could read them because I wanted to know if it would pay respect to what the song was about to him. And then I found out that a lot of these songs, we have very similar experiences in our lives. And I think that's why it resonated with me the way that it did. So I'm really excited about it. I hope I'm able to push it for him.
Yeah, you were promoting it at the show last night.
Yep, everyone got a little free thing. So
yeah, that's super cool. I was going to ask, did he know about Reflections?
Yeah, he knew about Reflections as like a gent band.
Oh yeah,
you know, and which is really funny. And it's weird to think about, you know, how much of this news that we put out here actually makes its way to Russia. You know what I mean? Like, do they still think like Exist is like the newest shit we've done or something.
Well, yeah, and you guys have changed your sound so many times.
Exactly. Dude, there are people asking if we were the same Reflections that put out The Color Clear.
A couple of my friends were like, wait, is this the same band or is this the same vocalist? I'm like, yeah, I know. It doesn't seem like it, but it is. I guess I could probably imagine the answer to this, but why'd you go like super heavy, like just all basically like mostly 90% low screams on Willow? I'm guessing just because the music called for it.
Yeah, it
to
called
be like
for
that.
it. And like, that was always something I wanted to do. And I was told previously that I shouldn't do my lows a lot.
Why? Who said that? Well, sorry, you don't have to tell me.
Yeah. It was both in the band and people that were producing it said that it should be utilized more as like a feature thing. And then whenever I did it, people would be like, oh, this part is cool. And I'm like, and I wanted to do it in all these other places, but I was told no.
Oh, you got the destiny in your own hands, dude.
Yep, exactly.
With Willow. How do you think that went?
I like it. From Nothing was the first time I had recorded any vocals in years. So when I listen to that song, I'm definitely like, I wish I would have recorded this a couple times, but I had it in my head. When I record this song, it's going to be the first time I record it, and I'm not going to practice it at all. And I'm going to record it one time through, and I'm going to be done.
One take?
Not one take, but one session.
Okay, yeah.
You know, I wanted it to be real. I wanted it to sound
raw,
like
yeah.
the first time someone fucking did vocals in a long time, you know?
Dude, I love the high screams in that. There's only a few, but oh man, I love your high screams, dude. They're
that's why I get
super crazy.
That was another thing that I was told to use sparingly.
Oh my gosh. You
And I was
gotta
just-
stop listening to these people.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so to finish up on the fantasy effect, can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like what's
Yeah.
been involved with that process, and
Well,
is that like Patty's baby?
Yeah, because I mean, Patty wrote a heavy majority of that album with our first drummer. Our first drummer is actually also involved in the process again.
Really? On the fantasy effect?
Yeah, the reason that it didn't work out with our first drummer was kind of like what we were talking about. He would write a lot of stuff that he couldn't necessarily play, but he was a great composer. Like he was really good at songwriting. And when we were 17, 18 years old, he just kind of had, he didn't have the same vision that we all did. And he was like really tied up into just having a good time. And we were trying to really focus.
Right.
So, but you know, time does a lot of stuff for people. And I've been talking with him a bunch, and I told him that we were doing it. So he's given a creative input on it, which has been really fun because, you know, it's just nostalgic.
Yeah, it must be fun to kind of relive those
Yeah.
years a little bit.
No,
Does he live local in Minnesota?
No, he is in, he just moved out of Florida. I can't remember where he's at now.
So it's through digitally.
Yep. Yeah. I wish it could be in person,
I
but
know. Does Patty live in Minnesota?
yeah, he does.
Close enough for you to go visit and
He's
work
about,
together?
Yeah, he's about 20 minutes away. I try and get him over here as much as I can.
Perfect. Yeah, that's awesome.
And then there's been a lot of reconciliation with Charles over the past year, which has been nice. And, you know, I'm really hoping that he wants to be involved in it.
Well, you said it's about 90% complete. What could the involvement look like?
He could actually, you know, like do his solos on the record. He had a acoustic part in the song Rotations that he did, or not acoustic, classical guitar. You know, if he wanted to redo that, the song Good Push is entirely Charlie's song. You know, we've re-recorded it and showed him it, and it's like, you know, I told him, I was like, and it's not even limited to things that he did. If he was like, hey, I want to record the fucking left side, the whole album, you know, I'd be like, you were along for the ride this whole time, so by all means, you know. We've changed some of the songs a little bit.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, like, you know,
Hopefully people like that. It should be fun. Some flair,
Some
right?
of it's minute, and some of it is, you're like, that's different, you know? So yeah, that's been really fun, and it's going to be produced by Buster. So that's...
okay. Now you got me excited,
So
dude.
that's going to be really cool to like,
Man.
and there's going to be pitch screaming and singing and stuff like that.
So you're changing up the vocals a little bit too.
Yeah, for songs like An Artifact, where I really felt almost as soon as that song came out, I was like, there could have been a lot more vocal delivery. But I was not a seasoned vet at the time.
Oh man, that's super cool. That's really exciting. But if it's going to be mixed by Buster, like how much does it change, I guess, from what you guys record to when he gets his hands on it? Because, you know, he's a very creative guy that likes to put his own flair on it. And obviously he did with the last EP.
I'm not sure how he would handle that release because I think it's a little out of the ordinary of
Right.
the kind of music he produces.
Right.
So I would love it if he was like, hey, I have some ideas. If it's more of just a, hey, here's your beefed up drum samples and your new tones, I'll be happy with that too.
Cool. Yeah, that's exciting. So then the last thing we'll talk about with in regards to the music is the next full length after this. I know this is like super far in the future, a couple of years or whatever.
We're already writing it, so.
Okay, but I mean, just, there's an EP and then is that going to be the timeline? Like release the Crystallize EP and then the Fantasy Effect and then a full length?
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Yeah. And so obviously you'll have to give proper time to each of them.
Yeah, we're going to probably lay low and really focus on tightening things up after TFE comes out for the next full length. We might even spend a year after that.
Hey, and that's totally cool with me, and I'm sure a lot of other fans, because you guys have been spoiling us with a lot of music, which is really exciting.
And that's like a thing of the times. I feel like we kind of have to.
Yeah, but man, really, I love that. Really hunkering down and spending the right amount of time necessary for our next full length.
Yeah.
Because you said it would feel more like a follow-up to the Color Clear just because of the lineup and maybe the process of writing.
Full band writing again. The whole album is completely conceptually put together. Like Willow was really like, this album is going to be as heavy as possible and really dark. Yeah,
and you kind of led that album.
Yeah, I mean, that album, I put the team on my back a little bit.
And that's okay. Sometimes it happens like that for a season.
And that's what I told everyone. I was like, I just want us to do this. And I think after last night, there was a lot of talks where, it was good. But this next album is going to actually be probably anywhere from 20 to 25 songs.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
That will be finished and make the cut, or?
Yeah.
Jake, that's crazy.
It is crazy.
That's a bombshell, dude.
It's nuts.
Would it be more of a and B side, like a double album? Because that could be.
It's going to be broken into 4 pieces.
Would they be released piece by piece or all together?
I think they'll be released partially, piece by piece, and then a final conclusion of everything coming together, along with a lot of tracks that the final pieces to the 4. And there's also tracks that we're planning. Some of them are already made that will go in between each thing.
Jake, this is really exciting, dude. That's super ambitious.
I'm gonna put the downer on it, though. It will probably be the last album we ever do.
What, Jake? What?
Yep. No,
dude. Now you're dropping another bombshell.
Yep, that is probably what will happen. That's what we've been talking about.
So so basically a magnum opus to end off Reflections.
Because, we thought about that last show that we played. We were like, maybe this is it.
Last night?
No, the Color Clear. The
farewell show.
Yeah, the farewell show. Because it was like, we put out an album that we really like, and let's go out on like a good leg. But then you think about it, it's like, did we really go out the way we wanted to? We got shafted. We were broke and beat down. That doesn't sound like a very triumphant finish. So coming back, there was actually a lot of anger in the band at first for me trying to bring everything back, because it was like, what if you mess up the legacy or something? It's like, dude, we messed up the legacy by just leaving it the way that we did, in my opinion. Because like you said, there's all these people starting to find this music, and it's like, where were we?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you have a real vision of the career and being like, I want to end it with the best possible work in the best possible way.
Yep.
Right? That's kind of the idea.
Because again, it's not just me this time. And Fran is planning on, how for the Color Clear, he did like a photo set for every song. Now he's really into film and stuff like that. So he wants to like do pieces of film for every song and stuff like that. And it's like, we're basically going to do like, what else could we have done? And to the point where it's like, what else can we even do after this? And it's been really hard for us as a band to find that common ground with music over the past few years.
Just because everyone's grown up having different interests and all that.
People are getting married. People have had girlfriends for 5 years. People got their careers starting. And it's unrealistic to imagine that we can just keep doing this the way that we've been doing it for so long. So why not have one big thing like that? And then it's not to say that we won't ever put out a song again or something, but probably not another album. And if it did close off there, I would be content.
I think that's a very mature way to handle it. You're viewing it in the right way, because I think the younger version of ourselves would be like, no, it has to go on forever. It has to keep going. And that's just bringing it back to Space Waves for a second.
Right.
That's the theme in that. It's like, it's really hard for some people to realize, hey, everything has its time and there's different seasons of life. And so you try to make the most of it while you're in it. But like at the same time, you got to honor the past by living in the present, and you got to move on. And also something I learned, and I think everyone takes their own time to learn this lesson, is that just because something is ending, it doesn't mean it has to be a bad ending. Like there can be good endings to things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So like how long would you see Reflections continuing? And then kind of, I know you mentioned not really touring and stuff. Like how would the balance come between, you know, life and all the changes in the new chapter and stuff? Like, obviously there's no way to know for sure, but like, how do you see it kind of unfolding as you guys are going to close off Reflections chapter within the next decade or so?
I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I really think now I'm at a point where I can do it. And it's really, really set in for me as a reality over the past, this year, you know, just in 2021. I'll go on Instagram, on Reflections Instagram, and there'll be like, you know, it targets ads to me or whatever. And I'll see some band and their video of their new music video will start playing or something. And I'm like, damn, this sounds good. I'm like, who is this band? And then I go click on their profile and they have 800 followers. And I'm like, fuck, I bet all these dudes want it so bad. And I bet they're at home right now thinking about what the next move is. And here I am thinking about how to get out of this in a way, you know? And it's like, I feel like there are so many people out there that they really want it more than I do. Not to say that I don't want it, because being a musician is all I've ever wanted. It's all I'll probably ever really aspire to do creatively in my life. But as far as the band life and the tour life, I don't think that's me anymore. So I hope that we put this out, and I doubt we'll tour off of it. I think we'll maybe do some shows, like maybe in just some of our major markets with some of our largest fan bases.
I'll fly out again, dude. Definitely.
We'll come down to you, maybe. There we go.
Dude, come over to dude. I bet you have fans in SoCal where I live.
That's true. Yeah,
I'm sure you do. Yeah, you should come over. That'd be cool.
Yeah, we haven't been out there in so long. But then, you know, after that, like, I think I'm going to help other bands, because I already have people asking me if I can help them with like their song composition and arrangements and writing drums for people and stuff like that. You know, like I have things I could offer for other people to help them achieve their dreams. You know what I mean? Because like you were saying, and like the clip of your film said, it's like, you know, can't go on forever. And you're just going to tire it out.
Yeah, well, and just moving on to new things. I like that, because it's not giving up on the dream. It's just the dream manifesting itself in a different way.
Exactly. I mean, that's always something else I've always wanted to do, is just make music. Doesn't necessarily have to be mine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can give back, especially to the younger bands, and that's going to be really fulfilling.
Yeah, dude. It'd make me feel so good to see that band out there killing it. Like, I help those dudes a little bit. I mean, yeah, like that'd just be so cool.
And you'll be a real wealth of wisdom on practical knowledge with the drumming and the songwriting and everything, but also just with like, you know, you tell them, okay, don't tour here, don't do this, don't sign this, you know, do this and do that, you know.
For real.
I'm sure you'll be able to be a real asset and a real resource for people that want to kind of learn the industry as well, which is really cool. So talking about that next LP, you said you've already been writing some stuff for it. I'm curious, how do you decide what goes where with which releases? Because I guess this next EP is like a heavy one, chaotic one, whatever. Yes. And then some of the other stuff you're writing, how does it go in your mind where you go, oh, I want to save this for the Reflections magnum opus, as we'll call it?
I guess it's just a matter of what the music makes you think about. Because when I hear music and it makes me think about my past, things I try to not think about on my day-to-day, that kind of gets funneled into this heavy, dark releases. And when we write stuff that like kind of makes me remember that there's a new page to turn, then it's like, this belongs somewhere else. And there's probably a good 7-8 songs that have been roughly structured out right now, and the interludes. And there's probably been a good 12-15 songs that have been written and scrapped already, you know, because I want to do it right. And I really believe in all of us. And I think that's something that a lot of us lost throughout everything, because you do feel so defeated all the time. And it's like, wait, you guys realize we can do this, right?
Yeah. Do you have a work schedule for when you decide to write, or is it more spontaneous?
Yeah, it depends on what it is. Like, if for writing, I never try and schedule myself.
Lyrics or instruments, or both?
Both.
Yeah.
Because then I find myself feeling like I'm forcing myself. When it comes to things like composition, structure, editing, producing, I will be like, I have to do this. You know, I have to get this.
That's easier to block out time for sure.
And it's less emotional.
Yeah.
Because like when you're trying to like create something out of nothing. It's like, you know, it has to come from somewhere. And if you're like, well, it's 7:00 on Tuesday, I better get start. You know, it's like, it doesn't always work. Like sometimes it's 3 a.m. and you're like, I got to start writing.
Yeah.
You know,
We're just about to wrap up here. But I want to get the inside scoop just a little bit more on the next LP, which I guess you said like perhaps kind of like a 4-parter.
Yep.
I know it's like still super early in the process, but like, what are you going for with the sound? And would each part kind of be exploring a different sound? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So we broke it off into 4 with the original thought, and it won't be presented this way, but that every quarter of the album should feel like taking you through a year. So seasons almost, you know, you'll have your spring, summer, fall, and winter, and the music will kind of reflect that and the emotions that those times of years can bring for people. Spring, a lot of times people, at least myself, it's like, oh, the sun's kind of coming out again. There's hope. In the summer, you're warm all the time. And then in fall, things start decaying, you know, and
start falling apart.
Yeah. And in the winter, you're, you know, but at the same time, that doesn't necessarily have to end dark. I don't plan on the album ending in a dark way. I was going to tell you the title of it, but I'm going to hold on to that one.
Don't tell it. Yeah, I don't need to know that.
Yeah,
one.
the songs there's already names for all the songs.
Yeah.
The title is done.
Wow. And you feel like this title encapsulates Reflection's whole career?
It encapsulates I don't think it could be better for describing what has happened and what that album represents.
Man, that's super awesome to hear. And are the songs going to kind of pay homage to different parts of your guys' journey? Because I could imagine that being a solid choice. But
yeah, no, I've actually had that thought, and I have yet to achieve this the way that I would like to. But I wanted to have parts in songs where it almost sounds like you're stepping back to a different record for bits and pieces to represent time. And I almost said it.
No, just like celebrating the whole journey. I think that's super cool. And I think, just keep on going with that and don't feel the pressure. I mean, I would much rather wait 5-10 years for an incredible album than have something be rushed out. And I think you're of the same mindset.
Yes. For something like this record. Yeah. It, you know, with the heavy stuff, I feel like you can get away with things sometimes.
Yeah.
But this is like the one, you know?
Yeah. No, I love that. And it's funny you talk like this. I mean, because it definitely, it just reminds me of myself and the way I think of things. And I think a lot of, there's all kinds of different artists, but a lot of artists just love the joy of creating. And they're like, well, I want to make this and I want to make that. And I want to just put out all kinds of stuff. But I think for people more like you and me, there's like this really deep set desire and need and almost calling for it to be like, okay, I need to have this be like a very cohesive vision and aesthetic. And I need all these pieces in line to make something that I'm absolutely proud of and that I'm absolutely certain this is the best I could possibly do.
Right.
And so I know for me as a filmmaker, I've gotten to a point in my life where I'm like, okay, I've done my kind of experimenting years in college with experimenting different types of short films. And I got into filmmaking through skateboarding and making skate videos and all that stuff. And then as I've gotten a bit older, I've started to think about my career in a much broader, much bigger sense of like, okay, Space Waves is a solid first step and I'm very proud of it. And I'm very stoked on this being the first kind of movie. And I'm stoked on it being this very lighthearted kind of coming of age story. But as my career is going to move on, I'm like, okay, I want the next stories to be a bit darker, to be more emotional, and they'll still have humor and stuff in them, but I'm picturing my career in the long term. Like, how many movies do I want to make? What do I want them all to kind of represent? And I write all of my movies from a place of vulnerability. And it's always about, okay, these are a few experiences that I went through that are very personal, that are very painful or very deep or whatever to me. And I'm going to try to transform the pain and try to make something beautiful that other people that have gone through this pain can relate to and see. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that's the purpose there. And that's the reason I write and direct all my own stuff. I don't write for other people. I don't direct other people's stuff just because I don't see myself as like, oh, I'm some amazing director. I see myself as a great storyteller of my own stories. you know, because I'm not trying to just do quantity over quality.
Right.
And I want each movie to kind of signify a chapter of my life, you know, and I want each movie to take its time. And that's why, you know, if you're making one movie every 5 or so years, it's like you can only get to 8, 9, or 10 movies by the time you're, you know, in your 70s or whatever. And I'm totally cool with that. And I love the way you're talking about this last hurrah with Reflections and the last Reflections record, because it just inspires me thinking about the end and thinking about where do you want to finish off your career. And I don't want it to be like something where it's like, oh yeah, I made a bunch of movies and it just kind of fell off somewhere along the way. It's like, I want to leave a legacy for people and for myself and for my family and just for just the art itself. I want to make something very big and very exciting and very epic and something I'm very proud of as the last movie. Something
like going out on your terms.
Yeah, go out on your own terms. Exactly. So I look forward to that. And, you know, Quentin Tarantino, I've got some mixed thoughts on him, but he kind of is the one that brought this idea up. And the first filmmaker I heard really talk about, I want a 10 movie legacy and I want to end it on this way and blah, blah, blah. And he was talking about it like that. And I was like, dude, that's so cool. And I relate to that because not a lot of other directors and I don't know, I just feel like not a ton of artists think that way.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I've really heard a lot of people talk about doing their last record, you know?
Nobody wants to, but it's realistic. You have to be realistic about it and, you know, nothing lasts forever. And so it's like, I love the way you put it, like going out on your own terms, you know? Mm-hmm. So the last question I want to ask you, and we'll wrap this up, a deep question, and it kind of goes with this theme. When your time here on Earth is up and you pass away, how do you want to be remembered?
That's a good question, you know, because I've thought about that too. You know, I've thought about when I die, what is left behind after that. And I guess I just, I guess I just hope that I help people. I hope I was a part of helping people. And I hope that I could just be remembered as a source of something for someone to look at and realize that there is a reason to not give up. You know, because there are so many points in my life where I was this close to just saying, what's the point? And there's always a reason. You just got to find it. So I just hope that I hope I go out of some natural causes and, you know, be a nice thing for people to just realize that, yeah, just don't give up. Just keep trying. I just try and do things selflessly and put other people before myself. And I know I've made plenty of mistakes, and I hope people will remember me and realize that people can change, you know? And, yeah, we're all trying to get through this together, man.
Oh, dude, that's super good. And I think you can rest easy knowing that you've already really helped myself as well as so many other people. So respect you so much, dude. And thank you so much for taking so much time to talk with me today, dude.
It was a blast.
I really appreciate it, dude.
All right, what an awesome conversation. Thank you guys all so much for listening. As you may have noticed, this is episode 0. I wanted to get this episode out there before I officially launched my podcast in October 2022. I wanted to make sure this episode came out in a timely manner so it would coexist alongside Jake's plans for this new EP and the subsequent releases. And let me just say, this is only the beginning. There's going to be so many more rad guests and epic conversations down the road. So please subscribe if you know what's good for you. And I'm looking forward to giving you all more content in the very near future.
And that's it.